The story begins with his reincarnation into a fantasy world. The setting was serene, illuminated by flickering candles, starkly different from the modern lighting of Earth. This realm, less developed in comparison, seemed an unfamiliar place for someone like him, an orphan who had perished from overwork and had no home. Yet, for a child in such a position, it appeared to be an affluent household to end up in. Another sign of the family's wealth was the extraordinary beauty of the child's birth mother, who gazed at him with loving eyes, as though assuring him of a promising future in matters of love life. 3 years later, from his cradle, he caught his first glimpse of the outside world. Even at such a young age, the vastness of the world beyond the window struck him profoundly. His brief exploration was interrupted when the maid called out to him with concern, swiftly picking him up and cautioning him about the dangers outside. It was then that he discovered his family's connection to the Grand Duchy, a prominent entity within the kingdom. Apologizing to the maid, his identity was revealed. He was the son of Grand Duke Dragonia, a duke by title in the kingdom of Lionheart. At the age of 8, he began his training in swordsmanship, aspiring to become a knight in this fantastical realm. The wonder of exploring whether he would also learn to harness the sword and the aura during his training. His mentor was none other than Sir Gothic, a knight sent from the palace, known as the Holy Knight. Upon their meeting, Sir Gothic sensed the will of the goddess in the young boy, finding the encounter immensely rewarding. Introducing himself as Leon, the child could not help but wonder about the title Holy Knight. Polite and eager, he requested that Sir Gothic take good care of him, inquiring about the unfamiliar term. At 14th, the training was grueling. He was asked to drag a large rock tied to a rope, sweating profusely. In an outburst of frustration, Leon expressed how difficult it was to deal with Sir Gothic's training regime. To the young boy, it felt like mistreatment. Over the years, he learned that the title of Holy Knight referred to a powerful entity, cloaked in human form. Achieving such a position was an incredibly arduous feat. Sir Gothic explained that one could attain the title through rigorous training, completing quests, earning experience, and valor. The Holy Grail, a ritual involving the drinking of holy water, was also part of the process. Furthermore, as the son of Dragonia, Leon bore the responsibility of mastering the knowledge required to one day take up the mantle of Grand Duke. Gothic emphasized the importance of unwavering focus, not just in combat, but in preparing for Leon's eventual role as the successor to the Grand Duke. As Leon trained, he found himself contemplating the existence of a deity. Though he did not adhere to any specific religious belief, he yearned for salvation, hoping for recognition from the goddess. At 16th, he wandered the world, seeking acknowledgement from the higher power to become a holy knight. It was said that fame and good deeds would draw her attention, an idea Leon found absurd until he noticed a commotion at the distance. Amidst the chaos, a concerned voice questioned the influx of orcs, asking Sir Gildas if it could be the end, pleading for the goddess's protection. Despite the overwhelming threats, countless opportunities to wield his sword arose, leaving Leon anxious. He angrily questioned the audacity of invaders tainting the kingdom's territory, striking down monsters with his sword, and reflecting on the kingdom's long-standing battle against such threats. At 20th, Leon faced constant challenges, until he finally met the goddess. She acknowledged him as the son of Wulfric Dragonia and confirmed the truth in their words. Calmly, she presented him with a quest to test his honor and faith, which Leon humbly accepted, addressing her as Ariana. The existence of the goddess was now undeniable. After years of arduous toil, Leon ascended to become a holy knight. His path led him to countless battles against orcs, goblins, and an evil cult. His valor eventually earned him the title of War Knight, granting him authority to lead other knights. He led a conflict that resulted in the demise of 700,000 orcs, men, women, and children alike, which left him feeling revitalized for the carnage caused. After 35 years, the revered Argent Majesty Lionheart, known as the Living Saint and Demigod, met his demise while Leon was locked in battle with the archdemons summoned by the Empire. The uprising of demons, alongside the ever-present orcs, added to the chaos, underscoring the necessity for humanity to embrace faith in the gods and live devotedly. Despite the aggravation caused by the Empire's magicians, a pressing need arose to elect a new holy knight, one who would succeed King Lionheart, who had died honorably. Amidst the turmoil, the goddess addressed Leon Dragonia, acknowledging him as her faithful knight, a symbol of honor and faith, and selected him to ascend as the successor of her will. As she descended upon him, Leon humbly bowed before the goddess, accepting the weighty responsibility that came with the position, despite the exhaustion it brought. His commitment was unwavering. He could not afford to disappoint the kingdom's citizens or the knights who followed him. Transferring the sacred treasure, the lion heart, to Leon, the goddess entrusted him with safeguarding the Holy Grail. Thus, he ascended to become the Grand Duke of Dragonia and the king of the Lionheart Kingdom. Over the course up to 80th year of his life, numerous significant events unfolded: a trilogy of major wars against orcs, the evolution of a peculiar hunchback goblin into an archdemon, and the Empire's constant efforts to create chaos. One day, a guard alerted Leon, addressing him as His Majesty, about the Empire's dark magicians resuming their experiments, defying divine authority. Outraged, Leon condemned their actions as foolish and dangerous, calling them divine separatists attempting to defy the natural order. He ordered the gathering of knights, fueled by his belief that extending human rights to those unworthy was a grave mistake. Conquering them all seemed like a necessary course of action. 96th year of his life, the Empire crossed a pivotal line. The Emperor, with aggression in its tone, offered 3 million live sacrifices, pleading desperately for their request to be granted. The Emperor, once fearful of death, tragically ended his own life, along with 3 million citizens from the capital, summoning the Lord of Chaos in a final act of despair. Leon, undeterred, rallied his knights and unsheathed a holy sword still marked with the grime from the previous year's orc encounters. He commanded his guards to march toward the Empire. 121st year, they set forth toward the Empire. Yet despite his earnest efforts, the world seemed to be crumbling. Contrary to his deepest desires, he endeavored to conquer all darkness with the purity that resonated across the land. Yet he couldn't halt the advance of evil. One of his guards, addressing him as Lord Leon, prompted a response from Leon, who acknowledged Sir Arin and reflected on his father's honorable demise as he joined the gods' feast. The goddess's words echoed in his mind, and Leon rallied his troops, urging them to observe the scene before them. He noted the fear trembling in their comrades, the haunting sound of villains echoing across the land, and the heart-wrenching sight of women consoling their weeping children, silently enduring their own grief. These were the same individuals who had stolen away their brothers. Leon shouted, enraged, questioning whether they could hear the anguish of their brothers, the young ones grasping at the fading flames of resistance, questioning whether they could sense the villains who had torn away their loved ones, and witness the knights striving to sow seeds of hope in a land drenched in blood. He asked further whether they perceived the threats attempting to desecrate everything. Leon commanded his troops to feel enraged within and to cry out against the fools deceived by false victory. He addressed the goddess, possessing the holy sword, the holy spear, and the holy grail, declaring that even the first knight would be unable to halt the evil that had spread far beyond the horizon. He stressed the importance of honor, reiterating that as long as they held on to it, they would not falter. Seeking guidance, Leon appealed to the goddess, questioning what this foolish knight should do for her. In response, the goddess assured him of her unwavering presence, declaring that she would remain by his side until the very end. She addressed him as her beloved, honored knight. With a resounding cry for Lionheart, all troops charged into battle. That winter marked the culmination of their struggle, where they engaged in the ultimate conflict against billions of devils swarming the earth. Barbarian slaves were ruthlessly used as human shields, while civilian knights, armed with spears and shields, valiantly met their honorable demise alongside the glorious knights. As the chosen agent representing all gods and holy temples, Leon stood alone, confronting and vanquishing the demons until the very end. Countless demon lords and archons fell before him, demonstrating the might of the Holy Knight against those vile adversaries. 217th year, the unending winter persisted. Up to 256th year into his long life, Leon destroyed the last remaining demon gate, leaving the demons with nowhere to escape. Furiously, he shouted at these servants of evil, condemning them to remain trapped in this world with him, vowing to exterminate every last one of them. It wasn't him who was stuck. It was they who were trapped in this realm with him. Despite this, 300 years passed before Leon landed the final strike on the Archon. A blue portal appeared, and a voice asked if Hari was all right, witnessing a man defeat the Archon with a single strike. Leon stood inside the portal, his voice deep and resonant as he replied, "Rise and continue fighting." When Hari inquired about Leon's identity, standing naked in a radiating golden aura, he responded, stating that he was the king of Lionheart, the knight of the glorious knights, and the executor of the Holy Temple's will, Leon Dragonia Lionheart. It shocked the girl named Hari and her colleague. It had been 3 centuries since Leon encountered the Earthlings, marking the return of the Night King. A notification screen appeared, announcing that he had defeated all the demons in his realm. Before all of this on Earth, a mysterious gate emerged, its ranks shrouded in an unidentifiable black hue. Both the Korean Hunter Association and the World Hunter Association urged the nation's major guilds to join a raid, but their requests were declined due to the gate's unknown difficulty. Ultimately, the government mandated the Korean Hunter Association to venture in first, effectively issuing an execution order. Hari recalled that inside the gate, what greeted her was a shocking sight: a solitary naked man. Han Hari, an associate manager at the Korean Hunter Association, was deep in thought when her colleague called out to her, expressing concern while handing her a cup of coffee. Acknowledging her exhaustion, Hari wearily thanked him. Kim Jin-soo, the head manager of the Korean Hunter Association, inquired about the situation. Hari responded, stating that no one had believed it. Jin-soo remarked that such skepticism was expected, given the gate's classification as a black-ranked demon gate, which housed even the Great Devil. He acknowledged the miraculous feat of her returning alive without any aid from other guilds, let alone clearing the gate, an accomplishment attributed to just one man. Leon was then questioned if he was a survivor from inside the gate, to which he confirmed, identifying himself as a survivor from another world. This confused Hari and Jin-soo, who listened in from the other side of the glass window. There have been sporadic instances of individuals surviving within the gate realm. These gates, which had appeared worldwide over the past 3 decades, shared commonalities. They depicted worlds on the brink of destruction or already destroyed. At times, survivors returned to Earth, retaining unbelievable strength gained in the demon realm. Consequently, the government had made efforts to support these survivors, devising plans to scout them. Hari stressed the urgency of scouting these survivors, particularly highlighting the unparalleled strength of a specific individual. Jin-soo seemed to share her sentiment. He stated that, regardless of the circumstances, even an A-rank hunter had to risk their life when facing a high-ranking demon. Yet, Leon had managed to eliminate the Great Devil with just one attack, a feat that even the most skilled S-rank hunters would fear. It wasn't just a kill. Leon had utterly dominated it. Jin-soo's primary concern was the potential cultural differences, especially considering how Leon referred to himself. It hinted at royalty or something of the sort. Ever optimistic, Hari believed she could sense something positive in his voice, a notion that he was genuinely a good person. However, this idea was shattered when Leon's voice boomed, addressing the person in front of him as a lowly being. Hari and Jin-soo were startled by his tone. Leon continued, angrily bellowing about the barrier that even monsters couldn't breach, expressing outrage at anyone daring to tarnish the noble Lionheart name. The manager, taken aback, questioned whether this individual could truly be considered a good person. Hari cautiously attributed his behavior to potential cultural differences. 15 minutes earlier, Leon had reflected on his feelings of foreignness in certain aspects. It was a given, considering his background. He had been an orphan who toiled through his 20s, meeting his end due to exhaustion, only to be reincarnated into another world. As king and knight of a kingdom for over a century, he had subjugated the demon world, spending the next 200 years hunting demons. Now, 300 years had passed, and he felt relief in retaining some memories of his past life on Earth. A bald man spoke to Leon, addressing him as Leon Dragonia Lionheart. Leon pondered the situation, recognizing that revealing his past as an Earthling wouldn't serve his interests. He wondered if being a Night King who had lived for 300 years in another world was more impressive than being a man who died from overworking in his 20s. Furious, he demanded that the man refer to him as His Majesty, calling him a peasant. The man, shocked, hesitated but complied. Leon observed that the man was playing along, pondering whether this was due to the man's kind nature or if the government was simply cautious in approaching survivors like him. The man cautiously inquired about the Black Gate, or rather, Leon's world and his encounters with the hunters, asking about the demon slayings. When Leon fell silent, the man pressed further, asking if Leon had forgotten something. Hesitantly, he sought clarification, unaware of the context. Leon proudly declared his role in eliminating the evil species and protecting knightly honor. Then, unexpectedly, he appointed the man as his temporary secretary, granting him the privilege of documenting the momentous event. The man, taken aback, speculated that it might be a cultural difference. Still discontent, Leon demanded proper etiquette when addressing royalty. Using a translated phrase, Leon expressed his hunger, which the bald man urgently acknowledged, promising to arrange a meal. Leon, seeking information about the current world, requested details about Earth during his absence. The man murmured in affirmation, agreeing to provide Leon with an explanation. He began by telling him that the nightmare had commenced 30 years ago when gates began appearing worldwide, unleashing monsters and demons. Since then, the world had been in a constant state of emergency, facing significant losses. Each gate, he explained, carried a distinct theme and a clear quest. If left unattended, the gate would trigger a dungeon break, leading to monster invasions on Earth. The man informed Leon that the meal might be ready, just as they heard a knock on the room's door. Leon reflected on the differences, noting that in his world, demons had appeared in mass. Unlike these gates, which had specific themes and quests, it seemed as though they were designed to train humans through trials. The bald man enthusiastically entered the room, carrying food for His Majesty. Inspecting the dish, Leon recognized it as bone broth simmered for hours, seasoned with salt, pepper, and crunchy kimchi, a familiar taste akin to the soul food of his laboring days on Earth. The dish carried sentimental value for him, as familiar foods often felt more comforting than new ones. Yet, as he tried to hold on, saliva began to accumulate in his mouth. Puzzled, he questioned the nature of the dish. The man clarified, calling it xiaoliangtang, known as the soul food of peasants. To his surprise, Leon angrily shouted, feeling insulted. He could not fathom that a royal from another kingdom would be served what he considered a peasant's dish. Outraged, he proclaimed his titles. He was a royal from another world, the proxy of the gods, the guardian of the Holy Grail, and the possessor of the Holy Blade and Holy Spear. The man murmured, seemingly not understanding the situation. Leon's anger flared, and he grimly demanded the inferior peasant leave the room. He continued to list his titles: the Slayer of Malice, Lord of Chaos, Adversary of the 23 Great Devils, and the embodiment of the 300-year war history. Leon then reflected on his return to Earth after 3 centuries. His immediate observation was the chaotic state of the world. He attributed this disorder to the lack of proper religious faith and believed it was the duty of the royal family to enlighten the foolish peasants. Despite being back on Earth, Leon retained his identity as a Night King. Later, as Leon ate steak, Jinsu appeared surprised that Leon recognized their chicken and black bean noodles. Jinsu encouraged Hari, who was flustered, to take the lead, suggesting that Leon might be more intrigued by her. Hari, though complimented on her bravery, expressed frustration, noting that the only thing Leon had acknowledged was her courage. Peeking in from the door, she apologized deeply for interrupting the king's meal. In response, Leon wiped his lips and recognized her as the swordswoman from earlier, inviting her to sit down. Pleased by the positive attention, Hari hesitated before inquiring about the meal's quality. Leon calmly responded, acknowledging the sincerity and finesse of the chef. He clarified that the issue wasn't with the simplicity of the food, but with the attitude displayed toward the king. He added, emphasizing that foreign royalty should be treated with due respect in accordance with the status of their nation. Hari, feeling apologetic for her lack of knowledge and any disrespect shown, assured him she hadn't intended any offense. Leon assured her it was fine and redirected the conversation. He asked if her name was Han Hari, and then expressed awareness of the current world, asking if demons, those malevolent beings, had appeared on Earth. Hari confirmed the statement, revealing that her sole mission was to persuade him to join the Hunter Association. She contemplated how important it was to get him to join their cause. Eagerly, she asked if he would grant permission for the South Korean government to take care of him from that point onward. The 21st century intelligence war was focused on recruiting survivors, and it was crucial to prevent them from aligning with other nations. Leon asserted that as long as he was established in this world, it was his duty to take to the battlefield. As an honorable knight, it was only proper for him to engage in combat. Hari eagerly asked if he would consider joining their Hunter Association. Leon, with a glint in his eyes, responded that a king could not serve in another nation's military. Instead, he intended to establish a new order of knights in this world. Hari was shocked, but could only nod in response. Curious about the reaction from higher authorities, she asked Jinsu. He explained that there wasn't much to say, except that they needed to offer as much support as possible. He felt relief that Leon hadn't aligned with another country or major guild. In a weary tone, Hari expressed her frustration with the idea that their association, linked to the government, had to show deference to Leon. Hari's anger flared as she vented her frustration at the situation, attributing the mess to the influential and wealthy guilds who wielded power and influence. The manager responded in agreement, acknowledging the Phoenix Guild's involvement in the matter. Their conversation was suddenly interrupted by an urgent alert signal, indicating a dungeon break at the Honan Plains. Jinsu's eyes widened in shock at the implications of a dungeon break occurring at such a critical location, a vital granary. The potential consequences for food production were dire. Meanwhile, Hari reflected on the Phoenix Guild's association with the renowned S-rank hunter Li Yongwan, pondering whether his capabilities could not prevent the orange-colored gate from wreaking havoc. Jinsu's anger flared as he expressed his firm belief that the guilds may have ulterior motives behind this incident. He demanded immediate action to prevent any schemes from unfolding. Unbeknownst to them, Leon listened attentively from behind the closed door, gaining a comprehensive understanding of the situation. He contemplated the potential ramifications of a dungeon break, recognizing the devastation it could cause to the land, infecting the soil and hampering crop growth. Observing the situation, as a Knight of Light, he quietly questioned Demera about their well-being in the Hall of Gods, while Leon praying in preparation to face the looming crisis. Meanwhile, another soldier called out to Hunter Yongwan, seeking answers amidst the chaos. Yongwan, an S-rank hunter and the guild master of the Phoenix Guild, stood amidst the turmoil, inquiring if the person addressing him was from the association. Mockingly, he addressed Section Chief Kim and teased the rookie, Hanhari. Jinsu, furious, seized with anger. He believed Yongwan had orchestrated the dungeon break as retaliation for their refusal to accept the Phoenix Guild's demands. The Phoenix Guild had persistently sought tax exemptions for their substantial profits from gate-related activities, including magical crystals and monster materials. The request had amounted to a staggering tax exemption of 1 trillion. Jinsu viewed this as an act of vengeance for the guild's unmet demands. Frustrated by the excessive privileges enjoyed by large guilds, Jinsu found it outrageous that the Phoenix Guild would resort to such extreme measures simply because their requests had been denied. Meanwhile, Hari confronted Hunter Yongwan sternly, emphasizing the urgency of closing the gate immediately. She stressed the critical time frame of 1 week, warning of the catastrophic risks if the gate remained open for too long. Yongwan responded calmly, with a faint smile, acknowledging the situation's severity and the imminent transfer of gate authority. He expressed concern for the critical condition of his guild members, noting the challenges they faced in executing a raid with such serious injuries. Despite his intention to attempt the closure by the next day, he remained uncertain about the outcome given their circumstances. Hari's eyes narrowed as she confronted him with grim seriousness, questioning his lack of patriotism and the dire consequences they faced. Yongwan, however, casually dismissed her concerns, remarking on her perceived childishness. He reminded her of a discussion they had in the past, cynically highlighting the prevalent notion in this world that justice equates to money and power. Leon, silently observing the exchange, couldn't help but reflect on their shallow and outdated perspectives. Suddenly, Hari was taken aback as Leon made his presence known, stepping forward with a commanding presence. She hesitantly addressed him, respectfully referring to him as Leon, before abruptly corrected herself. Leon, adopting a serious demeanor, advised Hari against using a king's name so casually, asserting that she could address him only by his title. Yongwan, carelessly addressing Leon, asked about his identity, commenting on his Western appearance. This provoked an intense reaction from Leon. His eyes narrowed, and he silenced Yongwan with a fierce expression, questioning his audacity to speak in such a manner. Yongwan, enraged, anger boiled in his mind, offended by Leon's words, but Leon remained unmoved, his expression cold and resolute. Hari quickly intervened, addressing him as Hunter Li Yongwan in an attempt to diffuse the tension. Realizing that Leon was a survivor from another world, Yongwan apologized for his earlier rudeness and introduced himself as a member of the Phoenix Guild. Curiously, he asked if Leon was associated with the Gray-Colored Guild. Nonchalantly, Leon responded with reluctance. He was not one to repeat himself, especially not for someone who had been so disrespectful. He turned to Jinsu, his eyes narrowing, and asked for a concise summary of the situation, as he lacked the specific details about the gate. The manager, sensing Leon's seriousness, felt a flicker of hope. He wondered if Leon might offer his assistance, though the question still lingered in his mind. Hari, in turn, clarified the gravity of the situation. She emphasized the critical nature of a dungeon break, explaining that such events caused a massive outpouring of demonic energy, which infected the land and rendered it infertile for crops. The Honan Plains, a vital granary, was now in critical jeopardy. Leon, fully aware of the gravity of the situation, sought a solution and pressed for further details. Hari, after a brief moment of reflection, proposed the urgent need to cleanse the affected area immediately. She emphasized the importance of clearing the dungeon entirely to prevent further contamination and restore the land to normalcy. Leon, recognizing the severity of the threat, acknowledged that the infected land and the expanding gates posed substantial problems. He instructed Hari to assemble their forces without delay, assuring her that once the time limit for the initial raid had expired, he, as king, would take direct action. However, he reminded her of a crucial point. As a foreign monarch, he could not engage in military activities on another nation's soil without complying with the appropriate regulations. He insisted that before proceeding, permission from the local king must be obtained. Still hesitant, Hari voiced her concerns. Leon's tone grew stern as he emphasized the necessity of following the proper procedures. He questioned how one could call themselves an honorable knight if they disregarded the laws of others' nation. He stressed that protocol must be followed, urging her to contact her king and seek the required authorization. Yongwan, overhearing the exchange, muttered that this individual was even more inflexible than he was. Eventually, a formal request was made, and following Leon's directive, Hari began preparing the necessary items. Yet, she hesitated, questioning the purpose of these preparations. Leon clarified that the objective was to purify the infected land, which required the use of the straw dolls. Hari, uncertain about the process, inquired if the dolls were truly necessary. Leon confirmed their importance, but added that only certain dolls would suffice. He asked if the dolls had been crafted by the wives, and Hari nodded. The second requirement was that the creators must be women who had given birth. Leon then insisted that all the dolls be presented to him, prompting an unexpected and somewhat absurd doll-making competition. Participants gathered, presenting their creations. As the event unfolded in the middle of the plains, Leon critiqued each doll with a sharp eye. One by one, the creations failed to meet his standards. He described the designs as metaphysical eccentricities that dishonored the name of Lionheart. His frustration mounted as he angrily questioned the authenticity of women claiming to have given birth when it was clear they had not. He deemed them foolish for not understanding the gravity of the situation. Hari, too, struggled to present an acceptable doll. After several failed attempts, it seemed that none would meet the required standard. The 89th participant, an elderly married woman, stood quietly in the room, drawing Leon's attention with her creation. He asked her how many children she had given birth to which she replied that she had given birth to 12. Leon marveled at her, seeing her as the epitome of a living patriot. As was his custom, he expressed his appreciation, mentioning that under normal circumstances, he would personally send knights with medals and gifts. However, given the current situation, he could not do so. Instead, he took the woman's hand in his, acknowledging that the conditions had been fulfilled. With that, he conjured a large cup from a blue portal that materialized from his hand and began chanting. In a voice that resonated with reverence, he invoked the spirit of the Earth Mother, offering the doll of harvest and requesting that it be accepted. A golden light emanated from the cup, leaving the onlookers in awe. Hari gasped in amazement as he watched the cup fill with water on its own. Leon continued chanting, describing how the sun was rising, casting a crimson hue on the clouds. He spoke of the dawn of a new day, one that would mark a special beginning for their world. Yongwan, alarmed, noticed the water droplets moving into the doll, which had only moments ago stood on its own. Meanwhile, Leon, studying the ground, declared his greetings to Mother Earth, Demera, the god of life and abundance, remarking that it had been a long time since divinity had descended upon the land. He continued with his chants, offering salutations to the mighty Earth Mother, Demera, the divine being presiding over life and fertility. Leon looked down solemnly as he spoke of the new territory being plagued by malevolence, its land tainted and corrupted. He acknowledged the presence of evil beings, but noted that there was no trace of divinity, fearing that the disrespect present would tarnish the sanctity of the divine. He cast a sideways glance at the guild master as he voiced his concern. Demera's deep voice responded, noting that ignorance and greed were not always considered sins, as they were inherent traits of mortals. She then asked what Leon intended to do next. Unfazed, Leon replied that it was relatively simple to assimilate among the swordsmen, but the power wielded by a conqueror held divine authority. He explained his aim to establish a balance where duty and authority stood shoulder to shoulder. His goal was to enlighten the uninformed and guide them toward the correct path until a new pantheon emerged in the realm. Demera's voice softened as she asked if Leon sought a favor from her. Leon bowed his head respectfully, addressing her with sincerity. He spoke of the free people of the earth suffering from malevolent energy, acknowledging that this was not her wish. Yet he pleaded for her to heal and purify the land. Leon was acknowledged as the temple's champion by Demera through the doll, which dripped a droplet of water. She remarked that this world's soil was not her body, but she would imbue the land with her divinity, replacing this thirsty earth with her essence. As a result, all who walked upon the land would become his allies. A yellow light began to emerge from the earth, and Leon addressed those present, urging them to pay attention. He reminded them that this was a realm endowed with divine blessings, where every living being had a righteous duty to flourish and thrive. The crops began to look full and flourishing, signaling their transformation. Yongwan's voice boomed, urging caution. He warned that magically cultivated crops could be harmful, insisting that it was common knowledge. Meanwhile, Leon expressed disdain for his ignorance, defending the crops as divinely blessed and rebuking Yongwan for labeling them as poison. Leon's warning underscored the need to refrain from defiling the goddess with careless words. Yongwan, now agitated, racked his brain, realizing his plans might be jeopardized. He was determined not to let it fail and vowed to expose what he believed were lies. Despite his anger, he urged cooperation for the people's safety and promised to take steps to reveal what he saw as fraudulent. He offered to bring in an appraiser to authenticate the situation. One of Yongwan's guild members stepped forward and began the process by drawing a magical circle over the crops. This triggered the emergence of a window displaying information, showing that the rice was classified as rare and possessed divine blessings from Demera, the goddess of life and fertility. The surprising revelation that this rice could cure 3 diseases, including cancer, shocked everyone present, including Hari and Jinsu. After this discovery, Jinsu directed someone to fetch a pot from the chief's house. The rice was cooked, and upon tasting it, they observed a significant increase in benefits: stamina recovery of 100 per minute, mana recovery of 50 per minute, and a total duration of 8 hours. Essentially, it functioned as a powerful enhancer. Jinsu, perplexed, questioned how such simple rice could possess the same potency as a 3 million coin bottle of reinforcement. Hari, unable to contain her excitement, urgently called the manager to share the breakthrough. The manager advised her to finish chewing first before speaking, to which she admitted being curious and had inadvertently consumed a bug. This revelation shocked him, as she experienced beneficial effects from consuming a bug. This occurrence made them wonder if the blessing extended across the entire land. Jinsu considered the possibility that a free reinforcer might benefit all living beings. Excitedly, they ventured into the plains, catching bugs and encouraging one another to gather as many as possible to enter the gate fully buffed. This discovery significantly boosted the motivation of the Hunter Association's raiding team. Demera addressed Leon in a familiar tone, calling him a child. He respectfully acknowledged her as the goddess, and Demera expressed a sense of completion in her role, stating her intent to leave. Leon, grateful, expressed deep remembrance for the divine love she had bestowed upon them. Demera then requested permission to impart one final lesson to make sure to feed himself before vanishing. Hari, intrigued, started to question Leon, but he swiftly explained the concept of divine power. Hari continued her inquiry about the existence of a god in this world. Leon admitted uncertainty, emphasizing that a world sustained by divine power formed the foundation of a proper life. He then directed attention to the soldiers, indicating their readiness to enter the gate, now that they were fully prepared. Yongwan's comrade expressed concern, addressing him as the guild master and worrying about potential issues arising from their current situation. Yongwon, visibly upset, vented his frustration about the interference of the survivor, blaming the predicament on this individual. He expressed a strong desire for the survivor to perish inside the gate, contemplating it as a potential solution. His comrade, taken aback, inadvertently uttered Yongwon's name, but was reassured not to fret. Yongwon mentioned that the gate had already been partially raided, and the soldier reflected on the challenging nature of the middle section of the gate's interior. He noted, however, that only one A-rank hunter remained inside, Hanhari. Despite acknowledging Leon as a survivor with a supportive role rather than combat prowess, Yongwon expressed confidence in their group's ability to handle the situation, believing the survivor's presence wouldn't significantly affect the outcome of their mission within the gate. A formidable monster emerged, proving resistant to conventional methods of defeat. Suddenly, an urgent warning flashed, announcing the commencement of a dungeon break. The dire message put all life forms inside the gate on a ticking countdown to potential demise. As they entered the portal and arrived in the dungeon, the group proceeded cautiously, with Jinsu leading the way, shield in hand. Leon stood behind the group, with Hari positioned slightly ahead. He understood that most portals closed after a task was completed or after the boss inside was defeated. He relished the idea of facing a boss, but Hari, anxious, struggled to inform him that typically, these situations required a team effort, as bosses tended to overwhelm them, especially when ganging up. As they observed the skeleton strewn across the ground, Leon acknowledged that he was aware of the need for teamwork, having been told that previous dungeon clearances had been attempted. However, he noted that the number of monsters seemed to exceed his expectations. Hari, nervously, explained that the sheer number of monsters was a characteristic of this specific dungeon. Leon was taken aback by the term characteristic. She elaborated that unlike in most gates where the number of monsters decreases with each defeat, in this dungeon, the skeletons, zombies, and even special demons would infinitely respawn as long as the boss monster remained alive. Leon found this interesting and finally understood that the cycle would only end once the boss was defeated. He remarked that this must be one of those boss dungeons, and Hari confirmed, suggesting it must be a necromancer controlling the skeletons. Suddenly, a warning message flashed across the screen, signaling the start of a dungeon break. A red alert read, "Death has been sentenced," imposing a 3-hour time limit on all living beings within the gate. The boss monster, Commander Knight Dullahan, would gather its troops, and they had to defeat the commander within 3 hours. Frozen in place, the group felt the weight of the impending challenge. Jinsu, unable to contain his frustration, shouted curses at Yongwon for failing to warn them about such an obstacle in advance. Hari appeared somewhat nervous, but Leon remained unfazed. The group's attention turned toward a hand gripping a knight's helmet, its eyes emitting a haunting blue glow on a rocky perch. As the horse reared on its hind legs, hundreds of skeletons appeared before the massive boulder. Another window appeared, displaying a countdown. 2 hours and 58 minutes to defeat the Commander Knight, as the skeletons prepared to launch their assault. The skeletons cast a shadow of doubt, lowering the group's morale amidst the looming threat. The group began discussing the overwhelming number of skeletons, with one turning to the manager to inquire about the distribution of potions to boost their spirits. The manager attempted to rally the group, emphasizing the critical need for concentration, especially in allocating potions to the upper ranks. He directed Mashik, a skilled archer, to assess the current number of archers and mages. Mashik activated a skill that allowed him to spot 2 enemy mages and 30 archers. Chief Jinsu commanded the snipers to eliminate long-range fighters and instructed those with shields to block the advancing skeletons. Hundreds of skeletons closed in, launching relentless attacks. Jinsu, shouting, wished the skeletons good luck facing him. As the vanguard, he's skillfully blocking their initial strikes. However, their strength exceeded expectations. Despite the ferocity of their assault, Jinsu concluded that while the orange gates were on a whole different level, they were still manageable for a tank of his rank. Swift and precise, he shattered the skeletons with the prowess of a B-rank tank. Amidst the skirmish, he noticed 2 mages casting spells behind him. Surprised by the advanced skills displayed by mere skeletons, he decided to divert their attention. He shouted, directing the skeleton mages to focus on him. As magical projectiles flew toward him, his comrades grew concerned, but he withstood the onslaught. Reassuring them, he casually mentioned that it was just a minor sting and that his expensive gear had held up. The headless knight stood before him, radiating menace. Unfazed, Jinsu locked eyes with the formidable foe, clad in black armor and surrounded by a blue aura. The knight struck, and though Jinsu barely managed to block the blow, the force threw him back, sending him crashing into a pile of rocks. Hari, gripped with worry, watched helplessly as Jinsu struggled. Eager to assist, another member of the group turned to Hari, seeking guidance on the next move. They questioned whether they should call upon the reserve forces for help. Hari pondered for a moment, recognizing that this was precisely the role of the reserve forces. They needed to act soon. Meanwhile, Jinsu shouted to his forces, remarking that the monster boss wielded the greatsword too easily and urging them to stop it. Hari, still considering their options, realized that despite Leon being the king of Lionheart, who had defeated a demon king, there was no time to wait for reinforcements. A solution was urgently needed. Approaching Leon, she pleaded for his assistance. However, Leon remained calm and responded that a king does not intervene in trivial battles. Hari, perplexed, struggled to understand his response. Leon's words suggested that they must find ways to build their own honor. Leon expressed disbelief that Hari would try to force him into assisting with the battle against the skeletons, deeming such an attempt rude to the goddess. He asserted that he could no longer bear to watch the unfolding scene. Frustrated by Leon's indifference, Hari found herself at a loss. The group turned to her, seeking direction on what to do next. While she didn't fully grasp Leon's message, she quickly realized there was no time for contemplation. He had no intention of helping. It seemed to her that he had no interest in anything except the Dullahan. Meanwhile, Leon pondered how the undead moved so fluidly, his mind racing as the time ticked away. Hari's focus, however, had shifted entirely to the Headless Knight. Unsheathing her sword, she made up her mind to defeat the boss. Encouraging the group to support Jinsu and their allies, she fearlessly charged forward. She cut through the ranks of skeletons and used one of their heads as a springboard, propelling herself higher to charge to the Headless Knight. With a powerful strike, she aimed for the knight, but he skillfully parried her attack with his great sword. Despite her disappointment, Hari understood that the key was to separate the knight from the rest of the group. To her surprise, the knight discarded his head, preparing for a devastating attack with his fist. Bracing herself, Hari wondered if the knight had done this to block her view. She tried to block the assault, but the impact sent her flying backward. Unwavering, she quickly regained her composure only to find the Headless Knight standing before her once more. Having partially achieved her goal of separating him from the group, she apologized to her comrades, acknowledging that her range of skills was too large. Suddenly, a colossal explosion engulfed the scene, but the knight effortlessly dispersed it, displaying unyielding resilience. Hari, driven to conclude the battle, launched another strike. The knight, however, easily blocked her strike with his blade, seemingly unharmed. Hari noticed the stance it took as it swung its blade. Just as the strike about to reach her, a voice interrupted the fight, expressing admiration. Leon stepped forward, applauding, and expressed regret to the Headless Knight for underestimating it as merely an undead creature. With a noble gesture, Leon offered the knight the chance for an honorable duel, walking toward Hari and the Death Knight. He insisted there was no need for further casualties among their troops, proposing that the conflict should end with a noble duel between two warriors. Pride in his voice, Leon shouted his proposition, leaving Hari, Jinsu, and even a skeleton among them in utter disbelief. Initially silent, the Headless Knight eventually embraced the challenge. The skeletons lurking in the cave became intrigued by the captivating showdown between Leon and the knight. Slowly, they approached, their hollow eye sockets fixated on the duel with rapt attention. Leon stood confidently before the monstrous boss, displaying a mix of arrogance and respect. He summoned his sword, its gleaming blade catching the faint light, and commanded the Headless Knight to remove his helmet. The knight remained silent, his intentions concealed behind the armor. With unwavering determination, Leon asserted that he was certain the knight fought with a two-handed sword, telling him to discard his helmet. Enveloping his sword with a vibrant golden aura, a manifestation of his skill and power, Leon readied himself. As the imminent clash drew near, Hari approached Leon, informing him that the Headless Knight could only be defeated if decapitated. Unfazed, Leon asked if this detail was crucial to their victory. Hari was taken aback by his brazenness, but affirmed that it was indeed critical. She pondered how Leon intended to emerge victorious if he couldn't execute the decisive blow. Realizing the gravity of their conversation, the knight handed his head to one of the serving skeletons while Leon took a moment to explain his perspective to Hari. Leon emphasized that the duel's outcome hinged on the knight's sense of honor as he and the headless knight assumed their respective starting positions, their focus unwavering. Speaking his name aloud, Leon proclaimed himself the first knight of the goddess of light and justice, Dragonia Archduke, and the lion-hearted king. He then sanctioned the honorable duel with the knight, expecting a reciprocal introduction. However, the knight remained silent. As soon as Leon announced the beginning of the duel and finished uttering his own name, the headless knight gripped his sword with certainty and charged forward, unleashing a powerful attack. To Leon's nonchalant surprise, he effortlessly blocked the strike, his skills far surpassing those of the knight. Observing the knight's movements with a kingly attention, Leon almost anticipated its intentions with precision. He parried the attack, altered its path, and lightly touched the headless knight with his blade, counting 1 to signify the first when he landed. Leon readied his sword once more, aiming it directly at the knight. His voice resonated with determination as he declared the start of the second round. Unfazed, the headless knight raised its sword, preparing for another powerful strike. Hari and Jinsu, witnessing the intense clash, grew increasingly concerned for Leon's safety. Ever the discerning critic, Leon observed the knight's flawed footwork and swiftly brought his sword down. Jinsu and the group could scarcely believe their eyes, their faces displaying a mix of astonishment and bewilderment. Hari found the turn of events nearly unbelievable. The chief turned to her, seeking confirmation whether she saw that. Among them, she was the sole individual truly understanding the intricate nature of the duel. Filled with awe in her voice, she explained how Leon was indeed altering the trajectory of the knight's sword precisely at the moment their blades made contact, executing a daring crosscut, a maneuver rarely attempted by anyone. Undeterred by his previous defeat, the headless knight stood resolute against Leon's determination. The knight displayed a mix of admiration and amusement, standing tall as Leon lightly touched him with the tip of his sword for the second time to signify his second win. Once again, Leon instructing the knight to return to the starting position, acknowledging the knight's overpowering resilience. The ongoing duel between Leon and the headless knight showcased their skill and unwavering resolve with each clash of their blades. The knight pondered, realizing it had been a long time since he encountered a knight who treated him as one and requested a duel. It seemed like a ploy to avoid a difficult situation. Anyone would have thought that the suggestion to dismount from the horse was nonsense. The knight, standing tall with unwavering posture, possessed the demeanor of a seasoned veteran, whose history was woven with countless battles. His starry eyes, ceaselessly pursuing honor and eminence, commanded attention. He contemplated his strategy, preparing for the next sword attack as his foe launched another assault. With grace, Leon struck, easily overpowering Delan. With a flick of his wrist, Leon tossed aside the knight's sword and lightly touched him for the third time. Embodying what he believed to be the essence of an honorable knight, Leon offered the knight a chance for an honorable yield, asked if he wished to continue. The headless knight, as once was an honorable knight's, preferred the challenge of fighting as a knight rather than relying on necromancy. He yearned to engage with Leon countless times, embracing the knightly way. Charging at Leon once more, he launched a relentless series of attacks, but each strike was effortlessly parried. The knight wished not to employ necromancy, but to wield only his blade, reminiscing about dueling famous knights in his past wanderings and honoring the knightly tradition. He had long forgotten the art of combat with honor. Leon's movements flowed with a grace that contrasted the knight's raw power. Leon didn't need to exert much effort, while the headless knight grew increasingly fatigued. After skillfully disarmed the knight, flinging the knight's sword away, Leon tapped his sword on his body for the 10th time. Leon commended the knight, acknowledging the improvement in his swordsmanship, and inquired if the knight was beginning to regain memories from his past life. The knight confirmed this, expressing that indeed, he was returning to the glorious days of his past. Leon addressed the headless knight, asking if he desired to continue the duel. The knight called upon one of his loyal skeletons, which held his detached head. The knight indulged in a moment of reminiscence, reflecting on his extensive history of causing massacres. He lamented how long he had fought without honor and how he had wasted years without purpose. With newfound purpose, he declared that ending his life in this honorable manner would bring him joy. He lifted his head, and offered it to Leon as a symbol of the duel's significance. Filled with a mixture of joy and respect, Leon accepted the once headless knight's gesture. Placing his hand on the knight's head, he offered a prayer, a gentle plea for solace and rest. A bright light illuminated the cave, its radiant glow emanating from the knight and spreading throughout the area. Leon expressed his happiness that the knight had regained his honor, praying that if the knight had a god, that God would grant him peace. If no god accompanied him, Leon hoped a benevolent force would guide him on his journey's end. Leon expressed his desire to reunite with the knight someday, perhaps at a festival in the banquet hall of the gods. As the light grew larger, it enveloped the knight's whole body, dissolving them into nothingness. The Death Knight let out one final prayer, beseeching that glory lie with Leon Dragonia Lionheart. As the brilliance faded, the group found themselves back in the familiar surroundings of the rice fields. Filled with admiration, Hari turned to Jinsu and informed him that Leon had indeed kept his promise, resolving the matter through a duel. They pondered the nature of the magic Leon was displaying, its intricacies and origins. Hari remarked that he should have used that remarkable ability earlier in the battle. Overhearing their conversation, Leon explained that had he done so, the Headless Knight would have perished as a necromancer. Hari greeted him, appreciating his wisdom and adherence to the principles of honor. Leon continued, elaborating that a true knight lives for honor, and honor is born from deeds. Deeds can only happen when one possesses the will to undertake them. In the end, the Headless Knight received what he deserved, an honorable defeat that restored his lost honor. Leon then wondered aloud about the loot of the night, shifting the focus to his next objective. Hari, Jinsu, and Leon began inspecting the spoils of the duel. The knight's sword, a cloak, and a mysterious purple orb radiating with a vibrant violet aura. While Hari and Jinsu were surprised to see the loot, Leon remained unimpressed. Jinsu immediately noticed the orb's significance and concluded that it was far too costly. To his dismay, Leon destroyed it without hesitation, stunning everyone present. Leon explained that such items only bring chaos and destruction. That is how the Honam Gates raid was ended. Later, at the Leon's accommodation, Hari let out a deep sigh as she stood still, holding a cart filled with expensive food. Her face was filled with dread as she reflected on how, after only 4 days on Earth, Leon had already caused her to lose all hope. The first problem arose when Hari approached Leon about taxes. He shouted at her, questioning how a king of another nation could be asked to pay taxes. She suggested that he could pay using mana stones, but Leon dismissed the idea, stating that a king does not count as coins. He then questioned why she was discussing such matters, telling her that they should be handled by those under him, urging her to stop talking about coins as it was not his job. The second problem occurred when they gained new followers due to the introduction of divine power into the land. An elder asked how much they should pay in taxes, and with a serious face, Leon replied that they should pay him 19 trillion won and 90% of their crops as tithe. His sarcastic tone caused the elder to step back in fear. The taxes and the cost of living were already overwhelming, and the requirement of 90% of their crop yield seemed insane. Interrupting, Leon stated that as followers of the goddess, they shouldn't worry about being hungry. He assured them that welfare, the cost of living, and food would be taken care of by his guild. Hari then showed them a piece of paper revealing the incredibly high appraisal value of the rice. 15 billion won for 80 kilograms of blessed rice. The elders were surprised and praised Leon, realizing the enormous wealth they could amass even after the 90% tax deduction. They believed money reigned supreme. However, the primary concern remained Leon's residence in the apartment. When Leon entered, he began shouting, lamenting how the space resembled a battlefield. He complained about the absence of artwork and expressed his frustrations in a fit of rage, demanding a luxurious bed, standby servants, and constant access to artwork. This left Hari speechless. Hours passed as Hari tirelessly made calls until 2 in the morning, seeking luxurious accommodations for the king in 5-star hotels. She even kneeled, imploring him to rest so she could as well. Eventually, a compromise was struck. They settled on displaying a painting or ceramic piece in the room. In the present, Hari called out to Leon, addressing him as His Majesty. He invited her in, and she approached with a cart, though extremely exhausted. She inquired about his well-being, and he assured her that he was fine. She informed him that it was time for breakfast, and he asked if she had eaten. She admitted that she hadn't and advised her to eat whenever she could. He emphasized the importance of not skipping meals. Hari took note of his advice, eyeing the variety of delicious food laid out on the table. She contemplated enjoying a sandwich later, but to her surprise, Leon insisted that she take a seat. Shocked and touched by the gesture, Hari teared up at the thought of sharing a meal with him. She called him His Majesty and giggled happily as she sat at the table. However, Leon interrupted her, questioning her actions with an intense glare that confused her. He asked about her expression, instead of ensuring that the ribs were easy to eat for him. She explained that she thought they were going to share the food. Leon refuted that notion, stating that a country's king and peasants do not dine together. She fell silent, refraining from further speech. Moments later, inside Black Limousine, she informed Leon about the Hunter Association's decision to provide him with support, funding, and resettlement aid. She assured him that, while it may not be as good as a palace, they had ensured his comfort. Leon responded with gratitude, stating that he shouldn't ask for too much. As Leon was just a guest, he left it to her to handle the details. Turning to inquire about the loot distribution, he was reminded by Hari to manage it herself, though he expressed a particular interest in the cape, admitting he liked it. Nervously agreeing, Hari proceeded, and soon, they arrived at a beautiful, tall building. She informed Leon of their proximity to the Hunter Association, mentioning that the building had a helicopter pad on the top floor for convenience. "Not bad, His Majesty," she remarked. He simply nodded in response. As they walked, Leon noticed a statue resembling something peculiar. He expressed his confusion about it, but before he could dwell on it, someone greeted them, much to Hari's surprise. She had assumed Leon's presence here was meant to be a secret and questioned who the man was. The man, Park Jongchong, introduced himself as a member of the Duyung Group and the director of Food of the Future. Hari smiled upon hearing the name Duyung Group, acknowledging it as one of the nation's 3 major conglomerates, a truly wealthy company. She wondered aloud why the director was waiting for them. Zhongchang's glance carried an unsettling intention as he reached out his hand to shake Leon's. He remarked about the famous survivor, and with an evil smile, greeted Leon as Dragonia Lionheart. Leon remained silent, his expression one of disgust, questioning why a mere merchant would want to shake hands with him. Later, Hari and Leon found themselves in a room. She explained that the Hunter Association would provide the space for a year, covering utilities, rent, and offering room service and cleaning. Leon stared out of the window, simply acknowledging her words. Hari felt relieved, knowing that information about survivors was top secret, especially given Zhongchang's unknown intentions. She was glad Leon had ignored the director's offers. Curious, Hari turned to Leon and asked why Zhongchang had wanted to see him. Leon gave a blunt observation. There's only one thing a merchant would want, which is profit. The word echoed in Hari's mind, and she soon realized the reason: the blessed rice from the Honan Plains. The management of information had not gone smoothly, as a streamer had recorded the situation despite the Hunter Association's request for deletion. Glancing at her phone, Hari saw that the video had been re-uploaded under the account named Farmer Mr. Park. The scene shifted to Zhongchang's phone, where he was angrily cursing at Leon, calling him an arrogant little savage. He questioned a worker about the rice's effects, expressing concern since it had only been tested on rats, not humans. The worker hesitated to respond immediately. Suddenly, a lady chimed and reported to him that they had visited the owner of the rice field to gather more information. She explained that a dying dog had miraculously recovered after consuming the rice. Furthermore, people suffering from various illnesses, chronic inflammation, and sinus infections had experienced improvements and were cured after eating the rice. Both minor and major diseases throughout the village were seemingly cured by the rice's consumption. Zhongchang's smile broadened upon hearing the confirmation of the rice's effects, validating its potential on rats despite the lack of human testing data. However, his expression quickly shifted to anger as he recalled Leon's dismissive words, referring to him as a mere merchant despite his position as the head of the Duyung Group. The lady emphasized the necessity of acquiring the rice at all costs due to its unparalleled potential. Zhongchang's grimace intensified as he slammed his hand onto the table, loudly questioning how Leon dared to look down on them. His rage grew as he saw Leon's actions as a provocation, believing that he had picked the wrong enemy over something as trivial as fancy rice. With a smirk, Zhongchang saw Leon as akin to other survivors, whom he considered arrogant for thinking their world was superior. He contemplated unsettling Leon with a cultural clash, dialing his phone while muttering the words savage and frustration. Meanwhile, upon his return to Earth, Leon had set himself 3 goals. The first goal involved spreading faith in divinity. Earth hosted numerous gods and followers, but the absence of actual divine power was a critical concern. A true god was meant to embody faith and bestow blessings upon the world. Yet humanity was plagued by illnesses, and the lands were growing increasingly contaminated. To harness divine power, there was a crucial need for a new faith, one that would require more people to believe in a fresh deity. The second goal was the establishment of the Knights Templar on Earth, an organization of 5 knights that currently did not exist. Using divine power, if the guardian of the Holy Grail, the king of the Lionheart, was considered a demigod, then the Knights Templar would be regarded as saints. They would embody the essence of divine power, wielding it against evil forces with fervor and dedication. The final objective revolved around eradicating all evil on Earth by reclaiming divine power and elevating the Knights Templar. Standing beside a window, Leon pondered the necessity of spreading faith and preserving balance within the pantheon to elevate the Knights Templar, even though the concept of their existence on Earth might seem implausible. However, such thoughts didn't concern him much when Hari informed him of an official meeting request. He suggested there was no harm in hearing the person out, as they had followed the proper procedures. Later, John Chong and 2 others entered the room where Leon was seated. The director expressed gratitude for Leon granting the meeting, but as he gazed thoughtfully at him, it seemed as though he was delving into the man's very essence. Internally, John Chong contemplated whether he should lower himself for the sake of business, referring to Leon as a foolish savage. Despite his internal musings, he smiled and presented a large silver case to Leon, encouraging him to accept it. He anticipated surprise at its contents and eagerly unveiled the luxury items inside, believing that Leon could never imagine encountering such opulence. John Chong was convinced that once Leon experienced these items, he wouldn't be able to go back. He expected Leon to beg him to become his manager. Pride in his voice, Leon acknowledged John Chang's effort and decided to accept the gift. Meanwhile, John Chong pondered Leon's manner of accepting the gift, seemingly as if he was doing a favor by taking it. Externally, John Chong maintained his smiling facade, encouraging Leon to inspect the gift. Unfazed, Leon told Hari that there was no need for elaborate explanations about etiquette. He simply instructed her to open the gift. She nodded and approached the silver case, tapping it lightly. Steam and smoke billowed out, startling her as she observed its contents. Meanwhile, John Chong chuckled softly as the case revealed a collection of elite weapons, renowned possessions of their group. He intended for Leon to choose whatever he desired. Hari, intrigued, asked if these weapons were unique ranked items crafted by the master craftsmen of the Deus group. John Chong, brimming with pride, confirmed that all the weapons were indeed of unique rank, the best of the best. He explained to Leon that as he was transitioning into becoming a hunter, these weapons would be incredibly beneficial. Hari was taken aback by the generous offer of such extraordinary weapons. Her mind raced at the thought of possessing items that couldn't even be bought with money. She had only seen them on YouTube back when she was a student. However, Leon declined the offer, deeming these magnificent weapons as low-ranked. Both Hari and John Chong were shocked at how dismissively Leon regarded these remarkable weapons. Leon clarified his stance, stating that a good sword cannot be forged without the star's aura or a holy blessing. He questioned whether they solely relied on weapons to hunt beasts, causing sweat to trickle down John Chang's face as he pondered Leon's thoughts. He interpreted Leon's words as implying that weapons should be sun-dried like peppers and receive blessings from a priest. Leon labeled John Chong as an unfaithful merchant, but John Chong dismissed it as a misunderstanding. Leon further remarked that merchants were obligated to flaunt their items wherever they went. As if conjuring a sword out of the air, Leon considered John Chang's weapons suitable only for killing chickens and cows. Nevertheless, he was willing to give them a try. John Chong and his men were astonished to witness Leon summoning an old sword into the air, wondering if that was all he possessed and if he had gravely underestimated their weaponry. John Chong expressed his desire to see what Leon's sword could do and asked Hari if she would be willing to try one of those weapons. Taken aback by the request, Hari sought approval from Leon, who nodded in agreement. As she approached the silver case, she contemplated her choice. Eventually, her hand found the handle of a sword, and upon unsheathing it, a sharp blade emitting a red aura was revealed. This particular sword, named Dawn, was crafted by the renowned master craftsman, Jinshul, and had been Huri's admiration for 4 years. Examining it closely, she felt its power, realizing it had absorbed dense sun energies from a special gate for 10 days. When she sought Leon's approval to wield the sword, he questioned why she needed permission to swing what he considered a mere toy. This caused internal frustration for Zhang Chong, who silently insulted Leon. Prepared, Hari geared up to swing the sword at Leon's blade. Concentration enveloped her as flames began to encircle her weapon. Meanwhile, Leon maintained a composed stance, flexing his blade with determination. She raised the sword high, its flames erupting fiercely with incredible power. As she swung down, releasing torrents of flames, she announced her action, signaling her readiness. To the surprise of both Hari and Zhang Chong, her blade shattered into pieces. Hari stood frozen in disbelief as her sword broke, while Leon's blade remained unscathed by her powerful attack. Leon casually set aside his sword, deeming Zhang Chang's weapon worse than anticipated and a complete waste of time. With a piercing glare at Zhang Chong, he declared that the meeting would be limited to just 3 minutes. Zhang Chong, appearing submissive, was unable to respond, grappling to regain his composure after witnessing the Duyung group's supposed strongest weapon shatter before him. Zhang Chong and his group bowed their heads humbly, seeking patent rights over the rice grains from Leon. Perplexed, Leon sought clarification, prompting Zhang Chong to swiftly assure him of their willingness to pay. He confidently stated that the group was offering 180 billion for the rights. Zhang Chong knew well that the rice, capable of curing cancer, was worth far more than that, but he understood that the savage Leon did not comprehend the true value of 180 billion. Expecting its worth could drive him crazy. When Leon inquired if Zhang Chong wanted to buy the rice with money, he agreed, but with a condition. Leon must sign a contract granting the Duyung group a monopoly over it. He even suggested that if Leon desired, he could increase the price a little. Hearing this, anger flared within Leon like a glorious lion. He questioned Zhang Chong, asking if he dared to insult divinity. With immense strength, Leon unleashed his fury, left Zhang Chong and his group overwhelmed and powerless. They resembled frightened little puppies in his intimidating presence. Zhang Chong trembled in fear, convinced that his life would end as he faced Leon, who seemed like a gigantic lion with fiery, glowing eyes. Leon looked at him, calling him a fool, stating that he had confessed his sins. Overwhelmed, Zhang Chong fell to his knees, admitting that he didn't fully comprehend his mistake. With a gesture, Leon released the immense pressure and questioned Zhang Chang's ignorance and lack of civility. Leon explained that the crops came from land blessed by the goddess Demera. This blessing rewarded hardworking farmers who sweat and labor in the fields. It was not something that could simply be purchased with money. A grateful heart and faith served as the necessary payment. Leon criticized him, branding him as childish and a lowly creature who solely pursued profits by deceiving others. He questioned Zhang Chang's desire to possess divine products from a goddess he didn't even believe in. Afterward, Zhang Chong left, and night fell. Hari questioned Leon's decision to let him go so easily. She highlighted Zhang Chang's significant influence, despite being a lowly merchant. However, Leon dismissed the idea, stating that he was unaffected by someone as vulgar as him and considered it unworthy of concern. Changing the subject, he asked if she had prepared what he requested. Hari brought something over and mentioned the association's call, asking if he planned on taking the test himself. She suggested that it might simplify things. Leon was surprised by the suggestion and questioned the absurdity of her advice, asking why a king would need a test. Shocked by his response, she asked how he intended to proceed. Leon revealed his plan to search for skilled soldiers and asserted that he would personally test them. Hari quietly acknowledged the difficulty of his request, but Leon insisted on making it possible. His resolve brought tears to her eyes. A few days later, a black car was parked outside a large building. Inside, a surprised voice remarked on the unexpected sight, noting the person's presence once again that year. The voice belonged to team manager Kim Do-han. He greeted the man, mentioning that he hadn't seen him in a long time. The man introduced himself as Gu Daesung, an unaffiliated hunter. Do-han speculated that Daesung was there for a retest, praising his dedication and hard work. He inquired about Daesung's progress this year and predicted a swift rise in his rank. Daesung replied that he had to give his best shot. The old man extended an invitation for Daesung to join his team. Daesung, contemplating, reflected that even those without exceptional talent attained a C rank, yet he had remained a D-rank hunter for 10 years. Dohan praised his dedication and competence, assuring him that he would swiftly become an ace. He mentioned that while many considered mining to be hard labor, being on the team wasn't bad. Daesung acknowledged his 10 years of hard work, but remained resolute in his determination to continue improving. He reflected on his family and the challenge of repaying debts with earnings from dungeon raids. He needed to raise his rank to S rank so that he would no longer be a burden. Dohan looked surprised and informed Daesung about a foreigner who had caught their attention. They pondered whether he was European or a foreign. Despite his fair complexion, they were surprised and wondered if there were still economically struggling countries in the West. Their attention remained to Leon, who carried himself with an air of royalty. Dohan called out to Leon, referring to him as a young man, catching his attention. He then greeted Leon, who remained silent. Exuding a menacing presence, Leon questioned why a commoner was addressing him. Daesung witnessed the profound unease etched on Dohan's face, as if his very soul had abandoned him. Daesung remained anxious, telling Dohan that the foreigner had learned Korean in a peculiar manner, which Dohan acknowledged. When Leon locked eyes with Daesung, the man trembled in fear, sensing the overwhelming aura emanating from Leon's dominant presence. Dohan, noticing Daesung's reaction, questioned what was wrong, sensing the unease as he felt small and insignificant under Leon's immense pressure. An employee called out for number 57, instructing Daesung to proceed to interview room 2. He acknowledged and prepared to go, but Leon's intense gaze unsettled him. During the interaction with the employee, Leon contemplated his disappointment. He realized he hadn't come here for strong individuals, as no one seemed worthy of becoming a soldier. He considered that only low-ranked individuals or recent awakenings bothered to take the test. Then, an announcement called for number 77, Leon Dragonia Lionheart, to proceed to interview room 9. Leon pondered that he couldn't expect much from the outset. Upon entering the room, he found others already inside. One man addressed him by his name, Leon Dragonia, but Leon rebuked him, demanding to be addressed as His Majesty. Initially stunned, the man complied and adopted the respectful address. The man requested that Leon place his hand on a measuring device for the test. Leon intensely contemplated its purpose, delving deeply into its meaning. The instructor, noticing Leon's reaction, checked his chart, but Leon labeled him a fool, leaving the instructor bewildered. Leon argued, questioning how a peasant could dare to test the honor of a knight. The instructor attempted to clarify that the device conducted the test, not them, but Leon remained upset, criticizing the judges. He asserted that only honorable knights and gods could measure knightly strength, expressing disbelief that a mere machine could do so. The judges were shocked and confused, questioning Leon's presence. In response, Leon clarified that he had arrived in search of capable soldiers, only to be disheartened by the realization that even the judges themselves appeared lacking in competence. The judges were taken aback to realize that Leon was openly headhunting. He informed them that there was no one he found suitable and inquired about the next test. The judges then informed him about a test at the gate. Leon acknowledged that real skills were demonstrated through consistent training and realistic situations. His agreement to participate surprised the judges. At the Soul Gate, a voice asked if anyone felt dizzy or unwell, mentioning that some people suffer from motion sickness when passing through the gate. The Soul Gate, which typically closes after clearance, was left open for specific situations, serving as an example here. Daesung reflected that this year's strength measurement wasn't much different from the previous year. He realized he needed to excel here for better results. A girl admired the interior of the place and asked her older brother if it was a popular spot, but he advised her to turn off her phone. Daesung noticed them, recognizing the newcomers. An old man nearby commented on the pleasant air. Daesung estimated that they were all either D or C rank hunters. However, when he turned around, he spotted Leon, whom he recognized as a foreign. He considered Leon a newcomer due to his age and presence, speculating that he was there for testing. He worried that, except for the old man, everyone else seemed inexperienced and wondered if everything would be all right. Leon, sporting sunglasses and emitting a cool vibe, grabbed his attention once more. As the group assembled in the middle of the fields, they began with introductions before assessing their positions. Daesung introduced himself, saying that this marked his 10th year as a hunter. He specialized as a warrior and primarily served as a dealer. The siblings followed with their introductions. Taehoon, having awakened this year, wielded a shield and spear, while Nayeon primarily used daggers and was learning archery. Daesung was surprised, realizing that they were complete beginners who hadn't settled on their main weapons. He inquired if they had undergone training at the center, and the siblings enthusiastically mentioned their 3-month training, which left him in further shock. He then approached the old man, Gangtae, who introduced himself as being in his 5th year and using a gauntlet as his weapon. Despite awakening, he had recently resigned. Daesung feared that the old man's experience might be lacking, especially since he used a gauntlet, indicating that he was a close-range fighter. Turning to the last person, Leon, he asked if he was a foreign or if he spoke Korean. In response, Leon stared in silence for a moment before declaring that he did not fight. He explained that he could not use a sword meant for slaying dragons to kill chickens. This confused Daesung even more, making him wonder where Leon had learned Korean. As the group traveled through the forest, they recalled the test requirements, hunting down 50 kobolds. They recalled the instructor's advice, which mentioned that occasionally a gnoll might appear on the field. If it posed too much danger, he would step in, relieving them of worry and allowing them to focus solely on showcasing their skills. Daesung remained concerned as he glanced at his team members, noticing Taehoon looking nervous. He wondered if the test would go smoothly, given the earlier events. A flashback revealed Daesung asking Leon if he had brought any weapons. Nayeon then approached Leon, addressing him as a handsome man and offering him weapons such as the bow and arrow, asking if he knew how to use them. Leon gripped the bow, staring at it, and asked her if she wanted him to use it. She happily agreed, telling him he could return it later. Anger surged within him as he tightly gripped the bow, slamming it onto the ground and shouting that a knight should not use a long-range weapon like a coward. The team was shocked by his outburst as Nayeon cried out in distress over her bow, while Daesung stood speechless, staring at him in stunned silence while the team questioned Leon's actions. The instructor chuckled and advised them to get going. Back in the present, Daesung continued to worry that the test might fail. Leading the group, he turned to them and mentioned knowing of a location where they could hunt. The siblings agreed, but Leon remained silent, and the old man was content either way. Taehoon then mentioned a settlement at the end of the terrain where many kobolds were said to be. Daesung acknowledged the advice, but explained that their group was too small and that it would be almost impossible to escape if they were surrounded. He suggested hunting the kobolds in the caves instead, proposing that they set nearby grass and leaves on fire to create smoke and then proceed to the caves for an easier hunt. The siblings were impressed by his plan, praising his expertise, but Daesung modestly laughed off their compliments. He admitted that it was nothing to boast about, having studied tutorials and various methods while aspiring to enter a higher-ranked gate. Yet, circumstances had led him to this particular one, and despite this, his determination remained strong. Tired of staying in D rank for so long, he was determined to advance this time. Suddenly, Taehoon stuttered out a warning, shouting about kobolds as a group appeared. Daesung swiftly unsheathed his sword, directing the boy to block the incoming kobolds with his shield as the creatures rushed toward them. With a decimating attack crashed on their faces, Taehoon wondered if they were foolish for running straight at him, finding it easy to block their attacks. Stunned, he faced another one flying toward him, just as Nayeon screamed, warning him about one in front of him. Daesung failed to intervene in time, and the kobold grabbed Taehoon and slamming him into the ground. Fear gripped the young boy as the kobold was stabbed right before him. Daesung warned him not to lower his guard, emphasizing that the kobolds, despite their weakness, were swift. Despite Daesung's warning, Taehoon continued to scream as other kobolds were shot down with arrows, and one was punched in the jaw. The old man effortlessly dispatched a kobold with his fists. Eventually, almost everyone on the team defeated the kobolds, earning praise from Daesung. Taehoon apologized for his mistake, feeling disheartened, but Daesung reassured him that it was understandable, as it had been his first encounter. He commended Nayeon for her 2 kills, and the elderly man ensured that everyone was unharmed, bringing smiles to their faces. Reflecting on the moment, Daesung thought that he could handle it, starting with anxiety but considering it a decent party, except for one person. He felt uneasy, noticing Leon standing still, seemingly curious. Taehoon questioned Leon about his lack of participation, while Nayeon expressed her dissatisfaction with him merely observing from a distance, wondering if it was acceptable behavior. Nervously, the instructor assured them that he would take this into account when grading. They collectively decided to venture deeper into the forest toward a cave. Daesung suggested continuing onward, assuring them they would reach the cave soon. As they arrived, He instructed them to gather dry leaves and branches at the entrance to set a fire, as planned. While preparing to light the fire, Leon confronted him, questioning the effectiveness of his plan. Daesung defended his method and pointed out Leon's lack of assistance during their mission. In a serious tone, Leon asked if that was truly the best Daesung could do, warning him not to make him repeat himself. Daesung asserted that he had used this method successfully 3 times before, but Leon challenged his reliance on past experience, questioning how he could depend on it with limited understanding. This enraged Daesung, who shouted back, considered Leon as younger, claiming that experience didn't matter. Defiantly, he proceeded to light the fire, filling the air with smoke. As the smoke filled the cave, they braced themselves for the incoming kobolds. Taehoon shouted a warning as the kobolds charged out, and the group retaliated, wielding their weapons despite the chaos. Daesung remained confident in his method, urging the others to eliminate all the creatures. He pondered the potential gains of slaying the kobolds here, even targeting a few gnolls in the plains. He knew it would be beneficial. However, their progress was abruptly halted by intense growling. The sound sent shivers down his spine, and sweat dripped from his face as he spun around. He recognized the monster and immediately knew it was a Null Captain. An entity with red, glowing eyes emerged from the trees, breathing heavily. Daesung's heart sank as he realized that the Null Captain was the boss of the Soul Station Gate, one rank higher than the kobolds. The creature let out a fierce roar, directed at Daesung, instilling fear in him. Daesung wondered why it had to appear at that moment as the Null Captain continued its intense growling in the forest. Neon calls out to the frozen Daesung, and after a moment, he issues instructions. He and Taehoon would confront the creature, while Neon and the old man would handle the kobolds in the cave. The battle began without the captain. As Daesung reflected on his decision to assign an experienced member to each team, he realized that sending an inexperienced D rank against the Gnoll was almost like sending him to his death. As Daesung and Taehoon closed in on the captain from the side, Daesung understood the necessity of trusting the young lad, despite his novice status. But when faced with the creature, fear gripped Taehoon. The Gnoll's fierce stare triggered tears in his eyes, and though he raised his shield, his body trembled in terror. The creature let out a deafening roar aimed directly at him. Daesung saw the boy's overwhelming fear and tried to encourage him to gather himself. But it became clear to him that Taehoon was too frightened to react. As Daesung observed the impending strike from the Null Captain, he knew that Taehoon would not be able to block it in his current state. In a painful moment, the boy screamed as the full force of the Null Captain's hit sent him crashing to the ground, his shield flying from his arm. Daesung shouted his concern, inwardly frustrated by the situation. Taehoon, trembling, tried to scream, but stuttered in his terror. Daesung observed the instructor, wondering why he hadn't intervened, despite his earlier assurances that he would step in if things became dangerous. Seeing the imminent threat to the young man's life, Daesung cursed under his breath, biting his lip in frustration. Without a second thought, he dashed toward the discarded shield, equipped it, and urgently shouted for Taehoon to get back. The Gnoll prepared for another strike, raising its sword menacingly. The heavy blow landed where Taehoon had been standing, shattering the ground. To the creature's surprise, a shield in Daesung's hands. With all his strength, Daesung managed to block the attack just in time, using the shield to save Taehoon's life. He fought back fiercely, yelling out as sparks flew from the clash of the shield and sword. Slowly, he deflected the sword's strike into the ground, causing the Gnoll to crawl out, angrier than ever, and prepare for another strike. As it raised its sword again, Daesung raised his shield, bracing for impact. Doubt lingered in his mind, but he knew he had no choice but to act. He reflected briefly on how things might have gone differently if Taehoon had gathered his resolve. In their current state, however, it seemed that death loomed over them all. Then a voice cut through the tension, remarking that they weren't doing too badly. A hand appeared, effortlessly seizing the oncoming sword with 2 fingers. Leon stood between Daesung and the Null Captain, one hand holding the sword and the other tucked in his pocket. Calmly, he encouraged Daesung to try again. Bewildered, Daesung questioned how Leon had stopped the sword with just 2 fingers. Leon locked eyes with Daesung, instructing him to raise his shield once more to face the captain. He asked why Daesung hadn't replicated his previous action, urging him to rise and lift his shield. Daesung, even more confused by the cryptic words, grew frustrated and alarmed. He yelled, questioning how Leon could be so unaware of the peril they were in. with their lives at stake. In response, Leon raised his voice. The knight's honor lit up in his eyes. He berated Daesung for his insolence, calling him an impertinent peasant. What justifies him judging Leon after witnessing the glory of the king of the Lionheart's guidance? Leon continued his scolding, emphasizing that for a Templar knight like him, guiding peasant soldiers was an honor that would be passed down through generations. He criticized Daesung for not showing the proper gratitude for his guidance. The Knoll captain, along with everyone else, was left confused by this strange turn of events. Despite this, Leon persistently shouted at Daesung, urging him to raise his shield, block, and counterattack. Still uncertain, Daesung gripped his shield, fully aware of the Knoll captain's menacing presence. He knew survival required action. The Knoll, growing more aggressive, turned its attention to Leon, who remained silent at first. But then, Leon emitted a powerful golden aura and addressed the creature provocatively, asking if it desired its own demise. In response to this overwhelming display of dominance, the Knoll captain trembled, showing signs of fear as it cowered before Leon's presence. Meanwhile, Daesung, caught in the chaos, braced himself as the Knoll's sword came toward him. Raising his shield to deflect the blow, he felt the immense strength behind it, nearly losing his grip. Frustrated with his approach, Leon criticized Daesung for relying solely on the strength of his shield in combat. He shouted at him, insisting that he should not face a stronger opponent head-on, but instead focus on deflecting attacks and searching for openings. Leon emphasized that simply defending against the Knoll captain would not lead to victory, as the creature was not a static target, but a living being capable of adapting. As Daesung continued to block the captain's attacks, Leon's admonishments persisted. He urged Daesung to use his intellect during the fight, but Daesung struggled to keep up with the defense and expressed difficulty understanding how to implement Leon's advice. In response, Leon acted quickly, kicking Daesung in the back of the leg, forcing him to narrowly evade an incoming strike. He told Daesung not to divert his attention from the opponent and to stay focused on the fight. Daesung, now realizing how close the attack had been, understood that his head had nearly been chopped and that a direct block would have been fatal. Leon urged him to concentrate, so his potential wouldn't go to waste. Despite the encouragement, Daesung found it hard to believe in his own potential. He still saw himself as an untalented D-rank hunter without any remarkable skills. However, as he continued to raise his shield in front of the Knoll captain, a surge of determination began to grow inside him. Slowly, Daesung started to feel a new sense of resolve, believing that this time, he could overcome the challenges ahead. His doubts faded, replaced by an inner conviction that he could face the threat. He responded to the Knoll captain's fierce roar with a howl of his own, mentally affirming his belief in his ability to succeed. As the creature's sword closed in on him, Daesung's shield absorbed the thunderous impact, creating sparks and causing a crack to appear. Despite the overwhelming force, he managed to deflect the attack to the side. Initially overwhelmed by disbelief, Daesung soon found himself filled with elation. He shouted aloud in triumph, exclaiming that he had succeeded in blocking the strike. But his joy was short-lived. The Knoll captain, acting swiftly, landed a sucker punch to Daesung's face, sending him flying backward in shock. Daesung could only lie there, stunned by the unexpected turn of events. Leon stood by, reflecting on why Daesung had failed to see the bigger picture. Daesung lay unconscious on the ground, and his evaluation was marked as D-rank for the year. Outside the gate, a voice asked Leon if he had already known from the start. Leon affirmed it, claiming that a warrior like him could never be just a mercenary. The voice belonged to Oh Kang-hyuk, the president of the Korean Hunter Association, who chuckled at Leon's response. He remarked that even a bewitching mask couldn't entirely hide his identity from Leon. Kang-hyuk asked if Leon had achieved what he had wanted from the evaluation. Leon replied that he had found a promising soldier candidate, but showed no interest in heading overseas. Kang-hyuk closed his eyes, understanding Leon's thoughts. He shared that he felt a little nervous after witnessing Leon's astounding power, reminiscing about the time he saw Leon face the Knoll captain, impressed by his abilities. In a flashback, Leon addressed the Knoll captain disdainfully, mocking its failed attempt to transform into a human. He then questioned how long the creature intended to gaze at him with reverence. With a casual flick of his finger, he knocked out the Knoll captain. Kang-hyuk chuckled at the memory, noting how Leon treated the monster like a toy, before Leon dismissing it as not even worthy of being one. Shifting the conversation, Kang Hyuk brought up Leon's desire to establish a guild and assured him of the association's support. He admitted that fame was crucial for building an organization and acknowledged that there were limited pathways to fame in the present world. Kang Hyuk then changed the topic to a peculiar gate in Cheongju, which had turned red after a failed raid. For a year, no one had managed to either destroy or obtain the coveted Jewel of Wisdom, as it was guarded by the Red Gate's boss, the Jag Spinner. In a flashback at the Cheongju Sports Complex Gate, the first team from the KPP Guild initiated a raid. A group of hunters had assembled to observe and explore the area. One member inquired to another about the place, and the other suggested it resembled a modern civilization, possibly more advanced than Earth. A female member, excited, described the gate as being from a future world. The man speculated that, just as there were fantasy and virtual worlds, perhaps there was a future world as well. Another member remarked to the guild master that the gate had a more cyberpunk vibe to it. The guild master, frustrated, expressed his concerns about the situation, mentioning how troublesome it was and that they needed to reconsider their plan, starting with how they had organized the party. Another member agreed, pointing out that their organization had been based on the assumption that they would face only a few formidable opponents. As they surveyed the area, the guild master spotted a building and informed the group that they would use it as their base camp, noting its elevated position offered a good vantage point. The group then proceeded to enter the building. Once inside, the guild master asked a member named Hoyle if he noticed anything unusual, but Hoyle reported that there was nothing, no NPCs or monsters in sight. The guild master inquired about Jag Spinner, the supposed boss of the area, but Hoyle confirmed he had not spotted it either. They found it peculiar that a city of this size lacked both people and monsters. The guild master initially considered this fortunate, suggesting that they might not be facing a resistance army or an evil authoritarian force. He gathered the guild members' attention and explained that despite entering the gate, they lacked information about Jag Spinner. He instructed them to stay vigilant and mentioned selecting an expedition team to map the area. However, before he could say more, a sudden laser shoot at him, explosively disrupting his head as he spoke. Hoyle witnessed the blood splattering around and called out the guild master's name in shock. The other members stared in horror as pieces of the guild master's head scattered everywhere. A machine equipped with a railgun, crackling with electricity, revealed itself as the source of the attack. Panic erupted among the members as they shouted that they were under fire and needed to seek cover immediately. The machine unveiled another barrel and aimed it in their direction. A massive explosion engulfed the building from above, sending the group scrambling to escape. Some members were caught in the blasts, and Hoyle called out to one of the fallen, shouting in frustration as he pondered how the A-rank guild master couldn't react in time. He wondered what kind of monster they were facing, seeking cover behind rubble, his fear growing as he realized they might not survive unless they located the enemy. A nearby member pointed toward the enemy's possible location at 3 o'clock, but couldn't estimate the distance due to the sand dust. She warned that the building wouldn't hold much longer, urging the next in command to act quickly. Hoyle commanded everyone to retreat, instructing them to hurry outside, as the building was on the verge of collapse. As they ran, the female member asked about the guild master's body. Hoyle refused to dwell on retrieving it, emphasizing that they could do so once they had regrouped. He instructed another team member, Hyrie, to check the exit. She agreed and rushed ahead. Upon reaching the exit, Hyrie signaled that it seemed safe, sensing no presence around. But just as she stepped outside, she stopped, feeling something amiss. She touched her neck, feeling an itch, and discovered a faint red line. Moments later, more red lines appeared, causing her body to be torn to shreds. The others reached the exit, but were met with the gruesome sight of Hyrie's dismembered body, bloodied wires scattered around her. Hoyle, noticing the wires and pondering their origin, urgently commanded his team to sever all the wires and escape. He advised them to infuse their weapons with mana to cut through the wires effectively. As they cut through the wires, the boss was watching them with his technology. A spider-like machine appeared, climbing the side of a building and sending out blue tentacles toward the guild members. Hoyle looked up, spotting the machine's attack inches away from him, and multiple explosions followed, caused by the tentacle-like lines. The screams and shouts of pain filled the air as blood splattered onto the ground. After the blast, Hoyle gasped for air, his surroundings now a scene of devastation, with the bodies of his fallen comrades scattered around him. His arm had been torn apart, and in his shock, he screamed for the entity responsible to reveal itself. Amidst the wreckage, a machine materialized before him. Hoyle wondered if this was Jag Spinner as he stared at the machine, its mind flashing back to memories of a female scientist handing a piece of machinery to the entity, reassuring it that it could continue fighting even without ammunition. The machine before him retrieved that very part, evoking his recollections. In rage, Hoyle screamed at the machine, accusing it of being a monstrous entity that killed his comrades. In response, the machine deployed its blue tentacle-like lines, swinging a laser toward Hoyle. It tore him into pieces as it uttered a single phrase, which is to protect the city. Shortly after, updates regarding the Cheongju Gate revealed a grim reality. The first raid team, made up of 58 KPP hunters, had no survivors. The same fate befell the second and third teams. Soon, the difficulty of the gate boss, Jag Spinner, was promoted to red, and the Cheongju Gate was put on indefinite pause. The scene transitioned to a heavy hammer landing on the ground as a man with braided hair discussed the weather, commenting on its similarity to what he had seen in a video. The woman with him advised against entering the city due to the high likelihood of encountering Jag Spinner deeper within the gate. A group of people dressed uniformly emerged, led by an individual with white hair. The leader reminded them of the plan. They would secure the Jewel of Wisdom, while the remaining rewards, including the 60 billion, would be shared among the other guild. The two guilds faced off, representing the latest entrance into the Cheongju Sports Complex Gate. The man with braided hair and the woman were members of one of Korea's top 10 guilds, known as the Golden Lion. Their guild master, Jumkil, held an S rank, while the vice guild master, Hwan Yona, held an A rank. Accompanying them were 47 guild members. On the opposing side stood the white-haired man from the Magic Tower, known as Gil Taesung, who was close to S rank, their group comprised of 48 mercenaries. Meanwhile, among the Korean Hunter Association members, Han Hari, an A-ranked individual, poured tea into a cup and offered it to Leon, addressing him with his royal title. Leon sipped the tea, commenting that it was decent, and inquired about its name. Hari, standing behind him with a dejected expression, mentioned that it was simply a barley tea. Leon sat atop a piece of cloth on rubble and enjoyed the tea, as another force within the team. The fourth raid team operation at the Cheongju Sports Complex Gate had begun. Within the ruins of the deserted city, the fourth raid team had established their base camp. Members from various guilds were seen bustling around, surrounded by crates. Leon, still sipping his tea, inquired about the apparent tension among them. Hari hesitated at first, but ultimately decided to confide in him. She expressed her concern about the smooth execution of their plans and the anxiety she felt if things didn't proceed as intended. Pausing for a moment, she revealed her genuine thoughts to Leon. She admitted that the ideal outcome was for everything to go so well that Leon wouldn't need to step in. Yet, she worried that such a scenario might deny him the opportunity to gain recognition and fame. Leon surprised her by agreeing with her assessment, noting that if he didn't need to intervene personally, it meant the situation wasn't dire. Capitalizing on the moment, he asked Hari about her view on the duties of a king in his kingdom. She took a moment to grasp the question before responding that, as she understood it, a king's duty was to rule. Leon nodded, acknowledging that this was a given, but remarked that anyone could take on the role of ruling unless they had true strength. He believed most rulers were quite similar. This prompted Hari to reflect on the King of Knights, recalling past events and realizing that Leon only intervened when an attack couldn't be blocked. Leon clarified that the King of Lionheart must act as the final defense. He emphasized that the king's intervention signified significant shame for the knights and highlighted the severity of the situation. Hari was taken aback by this explanation, just as Leon mentioned that it seemed like a coincidence this time. He expressed sadness, lamenting how he missed his honorable knights, as it appeared he might have to intervene once again in place of the raid party's weaker members. Hari reassured him that there was no need for his intervention this time, pointing out that the raid team included S-rank hunter Jumkil and a skilled mage. Leon asked if she considered them hunters, admitting they were indeed strong for ordinary humans. However, he had an issue with these so-called hunters. They lacked experience in warfare. He conveyed his concern with a serious tone and expression. Meanwhile, Jag Spinner was conducting reconnaissance work. Leon inquired if they realized that the outskirts of the city were actually safe, despite their confidence from having encountered the enemy only 3 times. Jag Spinner was now near a raid team member who remained unaware of its presence. Leon continued lecturing about how the hunters labeled themselves a raid team and asked them to analyze monster patterns and react accordingly. He found it to be comical, prompting Hari to become more restless as she listened. Leon explained that a true general responds to the situation without relying on fixed patterns, just as Jag Spinner seemed poised for action. However, before he could share what he knew about it, the creature's eyes started glowing intensely red, beginning the launch of its assault. Explosions erupted across the base camp, sending the raid members into a frenzy. Cries of agony and confusion filled the air as they questioned what was happening. Leon had intended to describe Jag Spinner as a skilled warlord, but before he could finish, the scene shifted, and a voice called out to Yappy, revealing the creature's real name. It issued an apology, expressing regret as a female scientist, visibly injured and bleeding, emanated a maternal aura. She assured that this was her final moment and requested one last favor from him. Entity number 10,253, Jag Spinner's final order, was to eliminate all unidentified beings invading the city. A gun barrel emerged from Yappy's shoulder, unleashing a barrage of bullets that rained down on the unsuspecting raid members in the base camp. The air quickly filled with screams and shouts as the bullets found their targets. The raid members scrambled for cover, realizing the attacks were coming from Yappy. They cautioned each other to stay low as the relentless assault continued. A clicking sound resonated through the air as Yappy exposed additional glowing red eyes across its body, switching to a heat-based motion sensor to detect the raid members' collective movements within the city. Observing multiple groups gathered, Yappy charged its railgun, releasing massive amounts of electricity. A powerful blast erupted from the railgun, targeting the raid members who had sought safety. A blue explosion illuminated the area as the raid members desperately attempted to evade Yappy's explosive assaults. The railgun's attack created a colossal blue, electric explosion at the heart of the base camp, shrouding the area in dust and smoke. The raid members could only curse in disbelief as they watched Yappy's devastating, futuristic tech powers. They witnessed the unfortunate fate of their comrades, who couldn't find cover from the monster's attacks, and wondered what kind of monstrous force they were facing to cause such widespread destruction. A system notification appeared for Yappy, indicating a 23% loss in the life response of the unidentified being, and it began to prepare for a continuous barrage. The system charged its energy to 48%. However, before it could fully charge, Junkiel leaped into the air to charge on it, wielding his raised hammer. He moved swiftly, commanding Yappy to perish with a single mighty swing of his hammer. The attack sent shockwaves through the air, and upon impact, parts of Yappy's body were destroyed. This momentarily confused the machine as its system logged damage to its main joint region, escalating internal pressure and altering its priorities. The gun barrel materialized directly in front of Junkiel as Yappy's system commanded it to eliminate the unidentified being. However, Junkiel wore a confident smile, informing Yappy that it was too late. At that moment, Yona appeared behind Yappy, her arms enveloped in flames. She delivered a devastating blow that sent Yappy tumbling from the building to the ground. Angrily, she asserted that Junkiel should not address her as Jumsun. Struggling to recover from the onslaught, Yappy heard a voice calling out in commendation of the raid party's efforts. The raid party's mage, Taesung, appeared amidst lightning striking from above. He reassured Junkiel and Yona that he would take charge, weaving magic between his hands. Yappy's system notified of an activity overload, triggering an emergency purge. Its radar system went offline, but the machine was now permitted to utilize restricted resources. It quickly began scanning the 3 raid members before it and was instructed to activate the RWR equipment within the city. Cameras throughout the ravaged city became operational, and the system commanded Yappy to change its target, scanning the mage, who registered as a risk level 3 with a prioritized removal status. Yappy was observed darting between buildings, attempting a swift escape. The raid members were taken aback by its sudden retreat and opted to pursue it. As Yappy bounded through the air, it exposed another gun barrel aimed at the raid members, unleashing another wave of bullets. The raid members found themselves helpless against the onslaught. Taesung issued a directive for everyone to assemble, preparing to activate the distortion force field. He retrieved a small marble-like object from his coat and dropped it to the ground. Upon applying pressure, a yellow barrier expanded into a vast circle around the base camp. A bullet approached the barrier, but deflected upon impact. A raid member questioned Taesung about the barrier, noticing the altered trajectory of the bullets. He explained that it was a magical tool designed specifically to combat Jag Spinner, though he felt ashamed of needing to use it so early. Upon encountering the barrier, Yappy's internal system registered the risk factor and observed the abnormal phenomenon. It initiated a maintenance operation, completing an analysis of the barrier. The system quickly scanned the location of the raid team and the barrier, identifying 3 weak points. The fire command was issued, and a bullet swiftly struck a raid member beside Taesung, shocking him as he stared at the event. He tried to process the impossibility, having already calculated the angles at which the bullets would swerve. He contemplated the source of the threat as another wave of bullets was unleashed at the raid team. Explosions rang out within the barrier, while the bullets effortlessly curved into their blind spots. A raid member urgently called for Taesung to deactivate the distortion force field, explaining how it hindered the team's ability to predict the trajectory of the bullets. As tension simmered, Taesung, still seething with anger, reluctantly agreed to power down the field, issuing orders for the raid team to charge toward Jag Spinner once it was disabled. The team, resolute in their determination, readied themselves to sprint forward as the mage began the countdown for the force field's deactivation. However, just before the critical moment, a frantic shout pierced the air, causing the entire team to halt in their tracks. Both Taesung and Manhwa were jolted by the sudden interruption. Glittering lines materialized, tracing intricate patterns around the raid team, revealing a network of wires. The expressions on both Taesung and Yona's faces shifted instantly to horror and shock as they realized the perilous situation. They were encircled by wires, a realization that sent chills down their spines. The team then came to the stark understanding that Jag Spinner wasn't simply attempting a getaway. They were trapped. Puzzled, they questioned how he had managed to set up the intricate network of wires so swiftly, seemingly materializing above them. Once again, the ominous reappearance of Jag Spinner's railgun added to the mounting tension as it charged, now positioned among the wires surrounding the team. Taesung, with disbelieving eyes, struggled to comprehend the unfolding events. He reflected on their hasty assembly within the force field as a mistake, one that left them vulnerable and unable to evade the impending railgun attack. As the system signaled the railgun's complete charge and prepared to fire, a sudden anomaly grabbed its attention: a horse galloping through the desert. The raid team, including Yona, Jumkeel, and others, reacted in disbelief at the unexpected sight. An actual horse was racing toward the wires, and their alarm spiked as they saw its eyes glowing, nibbling through the wires with almost otherworldly determination. Leon stepped forward, laying a hand on the horse, a wave of nostalgia washing over him as he greeted an old friend with a fond smile. With an air of regality, he mounted it, a sight that left Yona utterly astounded. Perched proudly on the horse, Leon appeared before the astonished team, seizing their focus and leaving them in silent awe. Leon, commanding their attention, praised the bravery of charging into the midst of adversaries alone, armed only with a horse. As the king of the Lionheart, he commended such valor. Even the system, sophisticated as it was, seemed thrown into confusion by his unexpected actions and words. Leon proclaimed that he was honored by Jag Spinner's presence and extended an offer for a duel. He graciously granted the royal permission to engage in combat. His voice rang out, imposing a reverent hush upon the surroundings. Jumkeel was visibly tense, a mix of disbelief and awe on his face, while Taesung appeared resigned. Those nearby were left pondering, confused, questioning the significance and intent behind Leon's words, wondering if perhaps he was on crack. The team, still reeling from shock and horror, was unable to comprehend Leon's audacious offer to Jag Spinner for a duel. Yet it remained stoic, unwavering in his concentration, fine-tuning the railgun's acceleration and monitoring the generator's capacity, now 133%. The system assessed Leon as a level 0 threat, simply classifying him as an unidentified entity, an organism that needed to be eliminated. Leon then summoned his holy spear through his innate abilities, calling upon his loyal old companion. His horse responded with a fierce neigh, pounding the ground emphatically. The system commanded Jag Spinner to fire the railgun at Leon, but Leon dismissed it. He declared that a true knight remained impervious to cowardly long-range weapons. His eyes shone brightly as a golden aura enveloped his form. He charged directly toward the oncoming railgun projectile, making no attempt to evade it. Leon's charge created a path of devastation, closing in on the impending danger. With unwavering resolve, he lowered his stance and elevated his spear in a determined posture. The explosion of the projectile formidable force resulted in a colossal explosion, sending shockwaves rippling through the entire city. In the aftermath, shattered remnants of machinery hurtled through the air, scattering in all directions. Jag Spinner witnessed the unimaginable. Its railgun attack had been breached. As Leon closed the distance, he delivered a mighty blow with his lance. In that fleeting moment, Jag Spinner's highly sophisticated AI calculations abruptly ceased to function, struggling to make sense of this unexpected occurrence. The AI faltered, unable to process the event, as Leon casually commented on its resilience. Designed to analyze situations, the system acknowledged the limitations of Leon's lance, an old-fashioned jousting weapon. Despite its speed, its impact potential was confined by its mass, creating a puzzle for the AI's logical processing of the situation. Consequently, the system designated Leon as a level 0 threat, considering him unworthy of further action. It remained confident that the railgun could instantly eliminate him. This assessment relied entirely on the machine's calculated evaluation. However, just 3 seconds before the anticipated impact, Leon's resounding shout triggered an extraordinary occurrence. A thin barrier formed, exhibiting a pattern unlike any previously recorded, an abnormal phenomenon. As the collision loomed, only 2 seconds away, the railgun's bullet was set to make contact. According to the projected scope, the anticipated outcome should have eradicated the opponent, even if they attempted to block it. Yet, a mere second before the impact, the railgun's bullet was effortlessly sent soaring into the air, defying all expectations in a seemingly playful manner. Leon had deflected the bullet, triggering an explosion in its wake. Contrary to the system's observation, there was no direct clash or visible attempt to block. Instead, the bullet was seamlessly deflected. This maneuver seemed ingrained in the Grail Knight's instincts, executed with a natural ease, hinting at a miraculous ability possessed by humanity's most formidable fighters. A skill that upheld the world's laws known as the Divine Law, specifically manifesting as the blessing of the arrow shield. This extraordinary skill enabled the deflection of any long-range attack once, regardless of its nature. As for its capability to deflect an atomic bomb, that was an entirely different league altogether. After Leon's forceful strike sent Jag Spinner hurtling into a building, his focus remained fixed on the impact site as electricity crackled around, signifying the system's ongoing struggle to comprehend and analyze this unprecedented event. Eventually, the system felt compelled to elevate Leon's threat level to 5 upon witnessing the noble golden aura radiating from his body. The AI system then commanded Jag Spinner to retreat from the battlefield, triggering a hidden hatch to emerge from its body. Smoke billowed, veiling its form as it withdrew. Meanwhile, Leon gazed toward the spot where he had sent his foe flying, a slightly perturbed expression on his face. He commented on the retreat in disbelief. The moment was interrupted by a flashback, where a female scientist instructed Yappy to guard a specific location. The area housed a purple orb emitting a dark aura, and she emphasized the importance of preventing anyone from approaching it. Soon after, a mechanical arm was discarded onto the ground. The system notified Yappy that the heavy arms were currently non-functional. It further detailed the temporary waste disposal, consisting of 5 regular bullets and 36 special bullets. Additionally, it communicated the availability of a sidearm, a 60mm heavy machine gun with 657 rounds remaining. The AI also underscored the importance of crafting handmade ammunition. Alerts were issued about damage to the resupply wire cutter and support joint check, causing significant imbalance. Given the level 5 threat, the system opted for a new weapon model from the enemies and initiated modulation on Yappy, leading to increased electric currents on the platform. Another memory surfaced, showing the female scientist expressing gratitude to Yappy for safeguarding the city. The flashback concluded as the AI system announced the completion of strategic modulation and signified Yappy's readiness to resume the mission in Block B at the city's core. Meanwhile, a team of raid members navigated through an alleyway amidst towering buildings. The lead member paused, signaling to the others that 250 meters ahead, a segment of a machine gun peeked from the corner of a building across the street, an indication of Jag Spinner's presence. He directed the long-range members to cautiously proceed across the street, while keeping the rest of the team in reserve for a potential distraction. However, sudden splatter of blood across his face captured his attention, alerting him to a grim and unsettling sight. His team had been gruesomely scattered into fragments by the wires in the air, their bodies sprawled in a pool of blood. This brutal sight unsettled him, urging him to pivot and confront whatever might lurk behind him. With his sword drawn, he lashed out at what he believed to be Jag's spinner, expressing shock and disdain at the scenario. Yet, to his astonishment, there was nothing behind him, only a red line materializing on his face. Sensing an unsettling presence, he felt a faint indication that something might be missing. Suddenly, more wires began to spread around him, accompanied by red lines crawling across his body. The raid member found himself sliced into pieces by the wires as Jag's spinner emerged from the shadows, surveying the havoc caused by the controlled wires. Meanwhile, the AI system alerted the completion of eliminating 5 unidentified beings. However, Yappy noticed a screen displaying that one raid team member was still alive, attempting to flee while expressing his fear of death. The system swiftly pinpointed his location. This raid member, identified as a level 0 threat, pleaded desperately for mercy as he collapsed among tombstones. The foe loomed over him, instilling fear. But before it could make a move, a memory flashed through its mind. The recollection involved a conversation with the female scientist concerning the city's burial grounds. She had expressed a wish to be laid to rest there and become an everlasting part of the city. At that moment, she asked if Yappy would continue to protect the city even in such times. The flashback concluded with the system updating its logical reasoning. The complete removal of the invaders was essential, and the same assessment was reiterated as static electricity enveloped its legs. Further AI updates followed, mentioning modifications, autonomous evaluation, hacking logical reasoning, and decision-making. This sudden shift plunged the raid member into a state of silent confusion, tears streaming down his face. Unexpectedly, Jag's spinner began to retreat from the man, surprising him with its allowance for his departure. As it bounced away, Taeyong called out to the man, checking on his well-being. Surprisingly, he felt that Jag's spinner spared him out of exhaustion, not malice. He speculated that the machine had detected his approach and chose to retreat, recognizing its inability to triumph. Taeyong agreed, acknowledging that even machines had their limitations. They surveyed the cemetery, noting it was notably cleaner compared to the rest of the city. Meanwhile, Jag's spinner continued its movement across the city, with its AI system assessing the enemy's strength. Despite a high probability of the enemy prevailing, it strategically chose to retreat, making a calculated decision based on the circumstances. Taeyong and the other raid members departed from the cemetery, finding the atmosphere unpleasant. In Jag's spinner's calculation, the system prioritized protecting the citizens, even in death. It estimated that 49 enemies remained, noting that Leon, a level 5 threat, remained healthy, as did the level 3 threat. The success rate of removing level 1 threats stood at 35.7%. As the system prepared to resume the battle, a shadow caught Yappy's attention. Turning to investigate, Leon's familiar face emerged from the light behind the doors. He asked the opponent if it had enjoyed its time with the commoners. Leon stood proudly before the emblem of a magnificent golden lion, embodying the very spirit of chivalry. Describing him as the embodiment of chivalry would not be an overstatement. He detested cowardly ambushes more than anything and always strived for a fair fight. With a stern expression, he asked Yappy if it was prepared for battle. The AI system was left bewildered upon hearing this. Leon's embodiment of the spirit of fair battles was clear, though it was important to note that his opponent may not adhere to the same code. That, however, did not deter him from his knightly morals. He refused to allow anything to break his resolve. This was his strength. This was what made him the chosen one. Leon wielded his holy sword, striding confidently through the flames, his passion evident in his eyes as he proudly swung his weapon, drawing near to Yappy. Leon growled that he should not expect honor from a machine, as Yappy activated its red light to analyze Leon's state, preparing for the fight. It checked its equipment, a heavy machine gun with 480 bullets remaining and 4 wire cutters. Adjusting its aim, Yappy fired at Leon as he stood steadfast amidst the fire. Yet the bullets failed to even touch him, thwarted by his divine law, blessing of the arrow's shield. Through the burning flames, Leon emitted a godly aura, detected by Yappi as an abnormal phenomenon. The system then commanded an analysis of the curvature in a 360-degree span. Fiercely maneuvering around Leon, Yappi launched bullets from points of various position, attacking him from 3 sides with fiery blasts. Despite the onslaught of bullets, Leon remained unmoved, maintaining his posture without a hint of movement. His eyes shone brightly, and a mysterious smile graced his lips, even as the ground beneath him cracked and wrecked. His commitment remained unshaken. The area around him was utterly demolished, with even Yappi affected by the flying debris from the explosive chaos. Suddenly, Leon smashed his spear onto the ground, causing further wreckage. This action caught the machine by surprise. Yappi fiercely moved, dodging the attack. Suddenly, Leon emerged from the burning flames and flying wreckage, riding his majestic horse amid the smoke and ash. He wielded his spear in one hand and reined in the horse with the other. Leon, glaring at Yappi with intense focus, addressed his horse, noting that the enemy seemed to want to play hide and seek with him. After witnessing Leon emerge unscathed from numerous attacks, the situation became incomprehensible to Yappi. It moved fiercely, launching attacks in multiple directions in an attempt to defeat him. The onslaught caused bullets to crash into rocks, sending wreckage flying through the air and leaving widespread destruction in their wake. Unperturbed by the relentless attacks, Leon continued riding his horse skillfully, evading each assault. Despite Yappi's violent barrage of bullets aimed at immobilizing him and his stallion, Leon remained unharmed, maintaining his swift pace. Yappi was astounded by Leon's unwavering resolve and wondered how such an organism could exhibit such remarkable speed. However, it remained an enigma for the AI system, further puzzling it. As Yappi moved fiercely, it suddenly used a pole standing right in the middle of its path to propel it forward using the momentum. It quickly recovered and prepared for a massive attack. Meanwhile, Leon rode his stallion with intensity, shouting and guiding it as they rushed toward Yappi. They eventually came to a stop at a distance, and Leon murmured words of praise, acknowledging the situation as not bad. Yappi, however, struggled to comprehend the turn of events with an empty head. In a flash, it adjusted its aim and moved furiously to launch multiple bullets toward the horse. Leon actively dodged the attacks, skillfully avoiding the onslaught. Meanwhile, Yappi, now airborne, locked its aim on its foe, while Leon remained steadfast, dodging every attack. Broken pieces of rocks and wreckage flew everywhere in the air. The atmosphere darkened amidst the smoke caused by the bullets and their destruction. Leon's eyes emitted a golden light, and with a grim expression, he addressed his horse, guiding it through the broken rocks. The stallion surpassed Yappi and flew above it. With only 68 rounds of ammunition remaining, Yappi gave the command to fire all its remaining ammo at Leon. All the bullets were released simultaneously, soaring through the air toward their target. Leon, wielding his spear while riding his stallion, faced the onslaught. Some of the bullets directly hit him, yet Leon remained relatively unfazed. His knightly pride shone in his eyes, emitting golden rays. He shouted in fury, proclaiming, "Glory to the lion hearts." It appeared as though he was enveloped in a shower of golden light. With a swift motion, he moved his gleaming golden spear through the air, marking the end of Yappi's attempt to run. As the spear arced, it emitted a sharp golden light, slicing through the air directly toward Yappi. Upon contact, the spear cleaved through the machine, severing it in two. Both severed parts hovered in the air, emanating sharp white rays. Yappi's system detected the lethal damage incurred from the fierce spear attack, signaling that its operational limit had been surpassed. The scientist's memories appeared again. She, seated before the jewel of wisdom, grimly uttered that what was sealed here would never be released. Amidst this, a half-broken piece of Yappi unexpectedly emitted a sharp red light, signaling its activation for detonation. The self-detonation process ignited, setting off all explosives intended for the landfill facilities within Yappi's parts. Suddenly, all of its fragments began to glow intensely. Leon, taken aback by the unfolding spectacle, watched in shock as a colossal explosion erupted from the ground, soaring to massive heights in the air, resembling an atomic explosion. When JS-10-253 opened its eyes, it found itself inside a storage container with the scent of oil lingering in the air. The commander issued a directive for it to go and protect the city, emphasizing its duty to safeguard the city without hesitation. Jag Spinner rushed toward the designated direction, fulfilling its mission. A colossal figure emerged, but the Jag Spinners moved with determination, with only one goal in mind: to support its allies and protect the city. Singularly focused on the protection of the city, thousands of Jag Spinners converged on the city, engaging enemy forces and defeating them. They emerged as the city's guardians, becoming heroes in the process. This story of unmanned tanks led by JS 10-253, saving the city from what seemed like a hopeless state, became a heartening tale for the citizens who had been losing faith. It was a story of resilience and triumph, one that instilled hope and pride in the hearts of the people. The Jag Spinners evolved into a symbol of hope, becoming stalwart defenders against the colossal monsters threatening the city, becoming the Knight of Steel. Number 10,253 and its fellow machines were remodeled, continuing to protect under the commander's guidance. They tirelessly defended the city, even as it lay in ruins, consumed by flames. As the city succumbed to destruction, the scientist's final plea echoed through the chaos. She implored Yapi, the sole remain of battle machine, to safeguard the city's remnants, emphasizing the importance of never giving up on such a vital mission. This became the last directive for it, ensuring that no one could approach the treasure, the jewel of wisdom. Prepared and determined, the Jag Spinner fortified itself, standing as the city's last line of defense against any malevolent forces seeking to steal the invaluable jewel of wisdom. It shielded the Sarai and persevered with unwavering resolve, faithfully carrying out its duty until this very moment, when it lay severed and helpless on the ground amidst the chaotic explosion. Leon fell into a crack, completely unscathed as he descended, unharmed by the previous battle. He pondered that he was saved by the effective blessing of the arrow shield. Surveying the surroundings, his gaze landed on a massive purple orb. Speculating that it might be the object fiercely protected by Jag Spinner, the jewel of wisdom, he advanced toward it, charging his sword. He was firm in his belief that such an object shouldn't exist. Suddenly sensing something from Yapi, Leon turned and asked if it was still attempting to fight. He inquired how long it had safeguarded this place and fought alone. Leon expressed admiration for Yapi's unwavering dedication and loyalty, acknowledging it as a knight of utmost devotion. He asserted that all living beings across dimensions owed their gratitude for its selfless service. With reverence, Leon addressed it as Sir Jag Spinner and solemnly declared that its quest had been fulfilled. Raising his sword toward the sky, a golden light emanated from the blade, extending from the ground to the sky. As a result, the jewel of wisdom was destroyed, shattering into pieces. Leon bid Yapi to rest in peace, offering heartfelt gratitude for its invaluable service. As Leon and Kang Hyuk, the president of the Korean Hunter Association, strolled through the corridors, Leon paused momentarily when Kang Hyuk expressed curiosity about the destruction of the Jewel of Wisdom. With a solemn demeanor, Leon inquired whether Kang Hyuk was concerned about the impending destruction of the potent jewel. In response, Kang Hyuk addressed Leon's royal title and granted him the freedom to handle the jewel as he saw fit. He proudly recalled Leon's part in the feat of destroying Jag Spinner, expressing full confidence in his abilities. However, Leon took a moment to enlighten the president about the dangerous and poisonous nature of the jewel. With a serious tone, he emphasized that the Jewel of Wisdom was not merely a potent artifact. It also harbored a deadly poison. He cautioned that the process of destroying it might not be straightforward and that mishandling such a hazardous object could lead to severe consequences. Leon delved into the origins of the Jewel of Wisdom, explaining that it was crafted from the malevolence of wisdom itself, a creation born from the darkest intentions to entice and manipulate humanity. Essentially, it was a jewel linked to demons, forged with the sole purpose of tempting and ensnaring those who came into contact with it. This revelation widened Kang Hyuk's eyes with shock, and he instinctively questioned the involvement of demons. Leon, speaking with a solemn depth in his voice, continued to shed light on the insidious nature of the Jewel of Wisdom. Initially, it granted the desires of its possessor, luring them in with promises fulfilled. However, like a beast that demands to be fed, it gradually began to ask for payment in return. The jewel operated similarly to an insatiable creature, consuming individuals with the allure of eternal life and power. It preyed on human weaknesses and desires, slowly but surely devouring them with its temptations. Leon elaborated on their rapid descent into darkness, emphasizing how swiftly one could lose their humanity and succumb to becoming a demon under the influence of the Jewel of Wisdom. Recognizing the urgency of the matter, he stressed the immediate need to destroy these jewels before further harm could be done. Kang Hyuk, equally worried, sighed heavily and resolved to inform the U.S. government about the imminent threat posed by these malevolent jewels as soon as possible. Urged by Leon, he pledged to expedite the communication. Their conversation led them to a massive gate ahead, and they paused briefly. Leon brought up the unsettling possibility that even high-ranking officials might have fallen under the seductive powers of the demons associated with these jewels. With a heavy heart, they proceeded through the gate, entering the vast laboratory. Numerous professionals were engrossed in their work, and radiant white lights illuminated the space, casting a surreal glow over the surroundings. Leon wasted no time and queried Kang Hyuk about the presence of a broken piece of Jag Spinner. Kang Hyuk confirmed its presence, reassuring Leon about its safety and protection within the facility. Upon approaching the shattered remnants of Jag Spinner, both of them came to a halt, sensing the weight of the moment. Kang Hyuk, with a poised demeanor, prompted Leon about his intentions with the broken Jag Spinner. Leon spoke of the honor that Jag Spinner held as a noble knight, sharing his plan to pay homage to its legacy. He expressed deep respect for Jag Spinner's valor and proposed to give it a ceremonial farewell, treating it with the dignity befitting a fallen warrior. Leon, after stating the need for a divine blessing, retrieved a golden cup, catching Kang Hyuk by surprise. Ignoring the astonishment around him, he began chanting, summoning prayers. His words resonated with an ancient power that captivated everyone in the room. As the incantations continued, Leon's voice grew stronger, resonating with a mystical authority. He directed his words to the fallen royal knight, Jag Spinner, bidding it to find peace in its eternal rest. As Leon poured the golden liquid came from the cup. Suddenly, an intense, radiant golden light surged forth from the cup, flooding the surroundings with dazzling brilliance. The luminous rays extended, enveloping the entire area and captivating the attention of everyone present. In the midst of this spectacle, the shattered remnants of Jag Spinner, previously motionless, displayed faint signs of movement. The astonishment was palpable among the onlookers as they witnessed the seemingly impossible. Jag Spinner, broken and lifeless, exhibiting a subtle yet undeniable movement. Even Leon, holding the golden cup that seemed to be the catalyst for this incredible phenomenon, was taken aback by the sight of Jag Spinner displaying signs of life. The golden glow continued to emanate, bathing the area in its ethereal radiance. Leon observed Jag Spinner's feeble movements and attempted to communicate with it. Jag Spinner's limited response came in the form of feeble sounds and motions. Leon perceived an unfamiliar, yet potent energy surrounding it. He contemplated the absence of any conventional energy sources, realizing that the divine blessing might have instigated this miraculous event. As Jag Spinner continued its subtle movements, emitting intermittent red, blinking lights and unfamiliar voices, Leon remained intrigued by the inexplicable nature of the situation. Drawing his sword, its blade encircled by a mysterious blue aura, Leon extended his wish for Jag Spinner to be chosen by the goddess. It was a prayer for the knight to find favor or recognition from a divine entity. The air was filled with anticipation and uncertainty as Leon's sword, now bathed in the enigmatic golden aura, stood poised near Jag Spinner. It continued its faint movements, accompanied by the intermittent glow of red light and the elusive, unidentified voices emanating from its broken form. Leon's sword, now transformed into radiant golden rays, emitted a luminous glow that captivated Jag Spinner. With purposeful determination, he forcefully brought the sword down upon the ground, creating a resounding impact. Taking a position in front of Jag Spinner, he placed one hand on the sword and closed his eyes in deep concentration. The unexpected display left Kang Hyuk and everyone present utterly bewildered. Time passed in silence as Leon remained in his focused stance, the room filled with an aura of anticipation and confusion. When Leon finally opened his eyes, they had transformed into a brilliant golden hue, shimmering with an otherworldly radiance. Strengthening his grip on the sword, he swung it in a circular motion, as if splitting the space apart, emitting an intense flood of golden aura and rays that spiraled outward, engulfing the entire area in a dazzling display of divine light. The room was bathed in a breathtaking golden glow, as the luminous aura emanating from Leon's sword filled the space, leaving everyone present spellbound by this spectacular and inexplicable manifestation of power. Suddenly, the presence of Goddess Ariana filled the room, leaving a sense of awe and reverence. Kang Hyuk and everyone else were rendered speechless as they witnessed the divine figure before them. Overcome with astonishment, Kang Hyuk immediately dropped to his knees in a display of deep respect. Goddess Ariana stood tall, radiating a powerful golden aura that enveloped her, elevating her presence to an otherworldly level. Every individual in the room knelt in acknowledgement of her divine stature. Amidst this profound moment, Leon bowed his head while addressing Goddess Ariana. Her words, carrying the weight of wisdom and authority, reached out to all present, showing the unique nature of the goddess with brilliant light before them. She recognized Leon as her first knight. Goddess Ariana addressed him with a gentle yet commanding demeanor, inquiring about the matter that had led to this divine convergence. Leon, maintaining his composure and showing utmost respect, with deep reverence, he spoke of Jagged Spinner, telling her the honorable knight, an exemplary figure who served as a role model for all others in his noble pursuit. He emphasized that Jagged Spinner deserved the goddess's care and attention, expressing his belief that the knight was worthy of such honor. However, Goddess Ariana, in her divine wisdom, revealed that Jagged Spinner had not yet fulfilled her quest nor proven its honor by offering its glory to her. Leon bowed before the goddess again, acknowledging her words. Despite this revelation, Leon, as her first knight, assured Goddess Ariana of his unwavering loyalty and commitment. Additionally, he humbly presented an alternative perspective, suggesting that if he, as her first knight, had not existed, Jagged Spinner would have been a fitting recipient of the glory and honor bestowed upon the King of the Lion Heart, a testament to the valor and noble attributes it possessed. With Leon's emphasis on Jagged Spinner's exceptional knightly virtues, Goddess Ariana, with a gentle and delicate tone, concurred with the sentiments, setting aside the need for further proof needed. However, she expressed the need for certainty on a particular matter. Extending her hand toward Jagged Spinner in a symphony of divine words, she addressed it as the otherworld Steel Knight, inquiring whether it would devote itself to the worship of light and champion justice by joining her knight's military. As her melodic words echoed, a subtle yet discernible movement came from Jagged Spinner, accompanied by nods from it. Continuing her observation, Goddess Ariana acknowledged Jagged Spinner's abundance of honor and knowledge, but identified a childlike innocence within its heart. She extended her request to Jagged Spinner, urging it to assist her knights in vanquishing evil. She affirmed that upon fulfilling this noble task, it would indeed be deemed a knight in her service. Both Leon and Jagged Spinner, reverently bowing before the divine figure, acknowledged her words. In response to Goddess Ariana's decree, Jagged Spinner emitted another set of unfamiliar sound from its ethereal voice. Leon, witnessing this interaction between the robot and the goddess, felt a deep sense of satisfaction. As Jagged Spinner participated in this mystical communication, the room felt solemn, resembling a sacred gathering. Goddess Ariana stood majestically, surrounded by a radiant golden aura. All others, including Leon and Jagged Spinner, knelt in reverence before her. The scene took an unexpected turn as a voice emanated from Jagged Spinner's interface, speaking of hacking signal patterns and installing a language model. Another voice followed, suggesting the necessity of devising a strategic plan to counter the impending demon attack. In response, Goddess Ariana reaffirmed her communication with Jagged Spinner, emphasizing the importance of loyalty and support toward Leon, her first knight. She assured Jagged Spinner that as long as it remained faithful and supportive to him, she would stand by it, granting glory and divine in its path. As her words echoed through the space, an immense golden aura burst forth from Jagged Spinner, enveloping it completely. The radiant energy transformed Jagged Spinner into a new form. the Grail Knight named Jag Spinner 10,253, infused with light and justice. The scene transitioned to the inner sanctum of the USA Magic Tower, within Master Reynolds' chamber, where a tense exchange unfolded. A remorseful voice expressed regret for failing to fulfill the command of a great being. A harsh voice chastised him for failing what was deemed a straightforward task, highlighting that the great being had shared wisdom and truth. Amid this confrontation, a cloaked figure humbly bowed before a massive red sphere, resembling the jewel of wisdom. Speaking with a tinge of regret, the figure offered apologies once again, explaining that their endeavors had been foiled by Leon, the survivor who thwarted all their plans and exceeded their expectations. The man bowing down was Master Reynolds Sherman, the head of the American branch of the Magic Tower. He found himself in a dire situation, trying to explain the interference caused by Leon to the furious Red Jewel. However, the Jewel, seething with anger, rejected Reynolds' explanations as feeble excuses and insisted on immediate action. In a tense moment, Reynolds tried to mention Leon's name again, but the globe angrily interrupted, demanding clarification. It then commanded him to turn on the news immediately. Complying with the command, Reynolds swiftly seized the TV remote and switched the news channel. To his dismay, the screen revealed none other than the King of Lionheart. He introduced himself with his full name and title. This revelation sparked PTSD in the great being, leading to a trauma of anger and the emanation of a vivid red aura that permeated the room. The tension escalated as the great being, manifested within the red globe, demanded explanations from Reynolds about Leon's presence and the circumstances surrounding it. Reynolds sensed the fear in his master and felt a growing apprehension himself as he tried to explain the situation. Unexpectedly, the red aura surrounding the globe master dissipated, leaving Reynolds astonished. The globe master declared that it had given up, expressing a refusal to engage further. This abrupt change caught Reynolds off guard, leaving him bewildered by the sudden shift in the master's demeanor. As he attempted to communicate further through the globe, a deep and unsettling silence pervaded the room. Despite his increasingly intense efforts to elicit a response, calling out repeatedly to his master, the Red Jewel remained unresponsive. Inside the immense structure of the Korea Hunter Association, Kang Hyuk informed Leon about registering Jag Spinner as his guild member. He explained the difficulty of implementing it immediately, but Leon, undeterred, walked away with purpose. Jag Spinner gracefully trailed behind him, each step measured, each movement deliberate. The air shimmered with an eerie presence, and from the unseen depths came a whispering certainty, an unshakable truth that all beings, in their own way, long to unravel. As they stopped behind the gate, Leon suddenly felt a wave of nausea and instinctively placed his hand over his mouth. The goddess's voice inquired about his well-being. Clearing his mouth, Leon reassured her, attributing his discomfort to nominating a Grail Knight in a land lacking divinity, acknowledging the toll it had taken on him. The voice expressed concern, but Leon insisted there was no need to worry. It was his responsibility for not being stronger. Goddess Ariana then expressed that it was not his fault but her own shortcomings. Leon responded with deep respect, emphasizing that regardless of the circumstances, blaming divinity was not the solution. He urged her not to speak ill of herself. In response, the goddess acknowledged him as her knight and expressed gratitude for his unwavering loyalty. She advised him to rest and have faith in his gods, assuring him that they would come through for him. Leon placed his hand on his heart, addressing her as Dear Ariana. Elsewhere, Goddess Ariana gathered a group of gods, calling them brothers and sisters, and emphasized the importance of helping their followers. She spoke solemnly of the day the King of the Lionheart turned 121, the day the world ended, leaving only one knight standing. He had expelled all divinity from his world, channeling it into his own heart. The gods had evacuated to the heart of the holy man, watching as the King of the Lionheart eradicated all evil monsters for 180 years. They had allowed a single person to bear the burden of the entire world. As a result, all the gods of the pantheon owed an unpayable debt to Leon. At a divine gathering around a sacred table, Demera inquired about Leon's current state. Goddess Ariana shared the troubling news that Leon had pushed himself to the limit. Pitos questioned what should be done, expressing surprise at the overwhelming burden placed on Leon's body just by appointing a single Grail Knight. This led to a query about the whereabouts of the once radiant king of the Lionheart, who had once shone with the glory bestowed by the gods. Pitos, the deity of war and fire, posed the question, his voice tinged with disbelief. Goddess Ariana advised him to retain some dignity, reminding him that Leon had faithfully fought for them for over 200 years and had eventually emerged victorious. Pitos wore a grim expression, admitting that he already knew this. That was why he feels anger toward himself. A deep silence enveloped the gathering. Breaking the stillness, Goddess Ariana declared that 180 years had passed, and the time had come to end their prolonged silence. She could no longer bear to witness her knight, Leon, endure such pain. Another god then spoke, suggesting they bestow whatever blessings they could to boost faith in society. He was Hito, the god of steel and blacksmith. Pitos questioned if Hito was suggesting missionary work, to which Hito affirmed, encouraging the gods to showcase divine miracles. He drew inspiration from the life of their followers, pointing out that the world was now interconnected through the phenomenon known as the Internet, which they could use to their advantage. This led Pitos to inquire why Leon, the former king of the Lionheart, hadn't thought to use the Internet during his time as a citizen. Hito explained that Leon had been a citizen before the Internet became prevalent, so the idea had not occurred to him. Curious about the feasibility of such an approach, Ariana asked about potential trials and errors, mentioning that it took 20 years for the news Leon shared to take root. Hito emphasized that this was where their Grail Knight came into play, implying that Leon would play a crucial role in implementing and navigating this new strategy. The scene shifted to Jinsu, seated before a large screen. A person urgently approached him, asking him to take a look at a video circulating on YouTube. As the details unfolded, Jinsu was shocked to hear about the YouTube video in question and was particularly intrigued by its purported connection to the nature planes. His attention shifts to the visible screen, which displays a channel named Pantheon TV streaming a live video showcasing miraculous rice grains. The footage highlights farmers reversing the power dynamic against those who once belittled them, delivering a single striking statement. It is just rice, but with one spoonful, life can change. The video presents astonishing results attributed to these grains. However, Jinsu remains skeptical, suspecting the content to be mere clickbait, despite acknowledging its high-quality production. Eager for more information, he turns to the person beside him and inquires about the creator of the video. In response, a hint is dropped, suggesting a possible connection to Leon, as the name Pantheon is closely associated with him. Intrigued, Jinsu questions whether Leon would actually be on YouTube. The individual, uncertain, considers the possibility that assistant manager Hari might be responsible for the video. Recalling a past conversation with Hari, Jinsu quickly dismisses the notion, remembering her clear incompetence with computers. Despite his doubts about the creator, a larger issue looms. These videos appear to be genuine, not mere clickbait. Conflicted by Leon's possible involvement, Jinsu hesitates before making a decision. Finally, he informs the assistant of his need to step out and promptly walks away. The assistant, curious, asks about his destination. Turning back, Jinsu reveals his intent to meet Leon, determined to uncover the truth behind the mysterious and seemingly authentic videos circulating on YouTube. In the penthouse where Leon resides, Sir Yappi sits in front of a laptop, diligently typing. The subtitles for the video have been successfully completed, and it moves on to the next step, uploading. As it proceeds, Hari peeks into the room and addresses it formally before cautiously inquiring if it is finished using her laptop. Stepping closer, she curiously asks about its activities. In response, Yappi reveals the plan, referring to it as noise marketing. It confirms that Phase 1 has been completed and elaborates on Phase 2, which involves network hacking, something that, according to it, is progressing smoothly. However, Hari, lacking knowledge about computers, misinterprets its actions, assuming it is simply playing games. Oblivious to the complexities of its strategy, she remains unconvinced of his actual efforts. Far away, amidst distant picturesque mountains and lush green fields, The Neju plains stretch out, a serene landscape enveloping a small traditional building. This location serves as the temporary office for the Pantheon Guild's Neju Plains branch. Back at Leon's residence, Jinsu bursts into the room, breathless and urgent. His voice carries a sense of distress as he insists that the videos must be taken down immediately. Both Hari and Leon react with surprise at his abrupt entrance and alarming statement. In an attempt to diffuse the tension, Hari steps forward, offering him some barley tea. Grateful for the distraction, Jinsu accepts the cup and drinks in a single gulp before refocusing on his concern. With renewed determination, he demands to know the identity of the individual responsible for uploading the video. Maintaining a calm demeanor, Leon responds, revealing that Sir Yappi was behind the upload. A shared look of shock passes between Hari and Jinsu upon hearing the name. The revelation that a reputed killing machine was responsible for the video leaves both visibly perplexed, struggling to comprehend how such an unforeseen development came to be. Still bewildered, Jinsu voices his doubts, questioning how something like Yappi could be involved in the video's creation. Sensing the urgency behind Jinsu's request, Leon inquires about his concerns. With sincerity, Jinsu explains the significance of the rice grains found in the Neju Plains. These grains possess unique properties known to cure diseases and promote health merely through consumption, a well-kept secret. Once this information reaches the public, the entire world will be drawn to it, as if from a fairy tale. He expresses concern that the Neju Plains, already plagued by thieves, will become a prime target for even more unscrupulous individuals. These will not be ordinary criminals, he warns, emphasizing the gravity of the situation. Despite his worries, Jinsu reassures Leon that the Food Administration's approval process for sowing is underway, and the association will provide as much assistance as possible once permitted. He pleads for patience, urging Leon to wait for the appropriate time before exposing the rice's miraculous properties to the world. Sipping his barley tea, Leon listens attentively. With an air of confidence, he acknowledges the concerns but dismisses them as unnecessary. His assurance leaves Jinsu perplexed, prompting him to demand an explanation. Leon, unwavering in his stance, clarifies his reasoning. He asserts that the goddess plantation cannot be stolen by anyone. Rather than providing reassurance, Leon's statement only deepens Jinsu's confusion, leaving him to ponder the extent of Leon's confidence. As the scene transitions to the Neju Plains, the sky darkens, revealing a partially starry night that enhances the breathtaking landscape. The vast rice fields further contribute to the scenic beauty. A road cuts through the fields, with a few cars and motorbikes stopped along it, creating a tranquil yet captivating sight in the heart of the plains. A voice filled with appreciation resonated through the air, expressing admiration for the authenticity of the rice grains. Meanwhile, a mysterious figure stood quietly, reading a message on a phone. The message contained an order to secure the seeds and set the Neju Plains rice fields ablaze. Two of them were fully armed and standing guard, while the third, who appeared to be their leader, expressed frustration. He had expected a maximum security setup in the fields, but to his surprise, there was nothing of the sort. Frustrated, he conveyed his disappointment to the others, informing them that their task was simply to harvest the rice grains and set the fields on fire. One of the armed men reminded him of the payment they had already received, urging him to focus on completing their job. The leader reluctantly agreed, instructing them to bring out the gasoline tanks. The intruders were revealed to be members of the Viper Squad, a demonic human association Korean branch of the Hitman Group. They made their way into the rice fields, systematically harvesting the grains while their companions sprayed gasoline on the crops. Suddenly, their progress came to a halt as they noticed a mysterious figure standing tall amidst the fields. One of them remarked that it appeared to be a person, based on its silhouette. As they drew closer, it became evident that the figure was not a person at all, but rather a dummy made of grass, standing upright in the fields. A sense of relief washed over them, realizing it was just a scarecrow. However, the moment of relief was short-lived. One of the men scolded the other for being startled by the scarecrow. The man who initially spotted the figure apologized for the confusion, but remained uneasy, claiming that he had felt like the figure was moving. The other dismissed his concerns, attributing the sensation to the wind. Still, The first man continued to stare at the scarecrow, finding it incredibly unsettling. He once again addressed his companion, urging him to notice the surroundings, pointing out the numerous scarecrows scattered throughout the fields. The mysterious scarecrows contributed to the eerie atmosphere, sending shivers down their spines. The senior squad member scolded the younger man, questioning how he could be a demonic human if he was scared of mere scarecrows. He berated him, telling him to stop his nonsense and to focus on sensing the wind direction. He emphasized the need to burn the largest area in the least amount of time. The leader of the Viper Squad then took charge, informing the others that he would retrieve the seeds from storage. As they proceeded to splash gasoline across the fields, preparing to set the crops ablaze, he suggested to the squad to keep some seeds for themselves, acknowledging the valuable properties of the rice grains. However, upon addressing Mansu and Gente, he discovered their absence. Surprised and concerned, he inquired about their whereabouts. The tension in the air grew as one of the squad members stuttered in fear, revealing that Mansu and Gente had been standing right behind him but were now missing. The realization that some of their own members were missing added to the unease, and a sense of something being wrong deepened. One of the squad members anxiously asked about Dusan's whereabouts. Amidst the vast, bewildering fields and the eerie scarecrows standing tall, there was no other explanation. The leader, now realizing the proximity of the scarecrows, asked in disbelief if they had already gotten this close. A sense of panic began to set in, as it became apparent that the scarecrows were surrounding them. Unbeknownst to them, a huge scarecrow loomed behind the leader, adorned with 2 stones that had thorns on them. As the leader turned to notice the colossal figure, his eyes widened in fear. To his horror, he observed that the scarecrow now had a face, complete with a stupefied smile. The atmosphere became increasingly tense as the leader watched in terror as the scarecrow moved. One of his companions expressed concern about the movement of the scarecrows, fear gripping his voice. The leader of the Viper Squad, now clearly frightened, explained that these were not ordinary scarecrows, but real monsters. The situation took a dire turn as numerous scarecrows stood before them, wielding massive weapons and emanating a menacing aura. The weapons they carried had sharp edges, gleaming ominously. The Viper Squad was now on the brink of panic, and they turned to their boss for guidance, expressing their desperation. They emphasized that these were no ordinary threats. Confused and alarmed, they questioned their leader about the nature of these monsters, especially since there hadn't been any reported dungeon breaks. Seeking clarity, the crew repeatedly asked the boss about the monsters, only to learn that he had never encountered anything like this before, not even in the gates. The boss reflected on the abrupt nature of the mission and the absence of many subordinates, his thoughts filled with unease as the realization sank in that they were facing something entirely unforeseen. He recalled how, from the very start, he had known about the peculiar nature of the message requesting the destruction of the crops. Determined to turn the situation in their favor, the boss of the Viper Squad resolved to teach a lesson to those who dared to interfere with their mission. Just then, one of his comrades pointed towards something resembling a small building and questioned if it might be a silo. The boss, intrigued by the possibility that the story behind the rise could be true and potentially make them rich, ordered his subordinates to transport as much as they could to their cars. From his perspective, the monsters seemed confined to the fields, leaving the storage seemingly safe. Urging his crew to hurry up, the boss took a confident step forward, anticipating a successful outcome. However, in a sudden turn of events, he was blown into the air with a resounding bang. The entire squad stood in shock, witnessing their boss in an unexpected and perilous situation. After the explosion, the body of their boss lay on the wreckage-strewn ground, completely knocked out. Confused and alarmed, the Viper Squad members speculated about the presence of mines that had been set up, realizing that they were positioned in front of the storage. They grappled with the mystery of who could have orchestrated such a dangerous setup. Suddenly, a voice resonated, announcing the verification of an unqualified human entry. This revelation startled them, leaving them to ponder the unexpected intrusion. To their surprise, the voice belonged to none other than the Jag Spinner. The Viper Squad members were shocked to see the Chongju Gates boss, Jag Spinner, in this unexpected place. In the aftermath of Jag Spinner's defensive action, the morning revealed a grim scene. All members of the Viper Squad were tied with ropes outside the building that housed the storage room. In front of them stood a notice board outlining the doctrines of life and fertility, while another emphasized a cruel sentiment, which is the most important thing, is that thieves should die. As the Viper Squad members were bound and exposed to the consequences of their actions, a notification appeared stating that the Viper Squad had been successfully arrested after the capture of the demonic human association. The worth of Pantheon and Blessed Rice was soaring. Jag Spinner observed all the incarnations of the Pantheon algorithm, actively promoted by Leon for the sake of the rice. Leon had visited the Blue House and engaged with numerous influential officials. Despite a minor incident where he insulted a news reporter, the situation quickly blew over. The internet erupted with news, inundated with statements condemning him. Survivors of the incident, including Leon Dragonia Lionheart, were quoted discussing how a peasant had tried to dine with the king during a banquet. As a result, the entire online community buzzed with discussions about Pantheon. The top searches of the week revolve around Neju Plains, Leon the Survivor, Pantheon, and Changja Gate. The scene transitioned to Leon, who sat calmly after perusing the entire newspaper. He contemplated whether this turn of events aligned with the divine plans of the gods. Deep in thought, he reflected that it appeared the gods were adapting to modern society more adeptly than he was. Abruptly, a voice shattered the silence of his room. Hari informed him of significant news, anxiously revealing that the evaluation results for the rice were in, valuing each pack at 230 million won. After a moment of reflection, Leon instructed Hari that the price needed to be reduced. Puzzled, Hari questioned Leon about his dissatisfaction with the high price. In response, he explained that while the market determined the item's value, high prices for the grains could pose a significant challenge for the less fortunate. He questioned how peasants would manage to afford such costly goods, emphasizing his belief that divine favor should be evenly distributed among all. Unexpectedly, Hari responded with a neutral tone, as if to acknowledge his words, without much emotion. Leon explained further, revealing that he had previously met with the president to advocate for spreading awareness among farmers about the equal distribution of divine favor. He told her that the president had stressed the necessity to uphold religious neutrality. Hari agreed, acknowledging the truth of his statement, but added that he had still managed to amass more faith. With a faint smile, he remarked that this should be sufficient to gather the Lionheart's power and influence. Hari, respectfully addressing him with his royal title, asked if everything would be acceptable. Leon, puzzled, asked what she meant. In response, she disclosed her successful bid for the Yellow Gate, fulfilling his wishes. However, she stated that raiding that gate with a selected group of people seemed nearly impossible. Despite the challenge, Leon maintained his composed expression and smiled. The scene shifted to Daesung, who was taken aback when he heard a voice asking if he was Mr. Gu. He was surprised to meet someone unexpectedly. Team manager Kim Gang inquired whether Daesung was present due to a text message about the Hunter Association president gathering helpless hunters. Daesung, equally confused, pondered the possibility of a gathering for hunters ranked D or C like themselves. Their thoughts were interrupted when they turned to find Han Hari among them. Recognizing her as an A-rank mage swordsman, they were taken aback by her unexpected presence, accompanied by a couple of bodyguards. Han Hari had achieved the highest record in last year's draft. Daesung absently absorbed this information as he observed her, just as Hari announced the imminent arrival of His Majesty Leon Dragonia Lionheart. Daesung was stunned to hear about Leon, the survivor, recalling that Leon was no ordinary individual. He remembered the incident when Leon had rescued him, acknowledging that Leon hailed from an entirely different world. Leon stood on the rostrum and addressed the gathering of hunters, warmly welcoming everyone. He explained that the reason for the invitation was his search for soldiers to join his guild, Pantheon. Leon elaborated that only those who had proven their worth and endured rigorous training would be honored to join his military. Daesung, taken aback, questioned whether Leon was offering them a place in his military, not just the guild. Leon's assistant then announced that they would now provide details on the entrance test for the hunters. The test would involve clearing the Yellow Gate at Samjin Station, with a screen displaying the opened Yellow Gate. Shock and confusion spread among the gathered hunters at the daunting prospect of facing the Yellow Gate. Some expressed disbelief and frustration, arguing that the test amounted to a near-certain death sentence. The varied reactions from the hunters were expected. They recognized the difficulty levels of gates were categorized by color. They recalled past experiences with black, red, and orange gates, such as when a demon king appeared on Black Gate or Jagspinner appeared at a red gate, and the Headless Knight appeared at an orange gate. These memories underscored the severity of the Yellow Gate, as hunters with C or D ranks saw it as almost certain death. Chaos broke out among the hunters as they grappled with the realization that clearing a Yellow Gate meant death. Tension filled the atmosphere as the severity of the situation settled in. The assistant sternly instructed the hunters to remain silent, then declared that anyone unwilling to proceed with the test was free to leave. One hunter, irritated, remarked that merely suggesting they could leave wouldn't deter them. Frustrated and disillusioned, many hunters decided to exit. One expressed his intention to go home and take a nap, feeling his time had been wasted. Daesung silently observed the departing hunters, contemplating whether it would be acceptable to let them leave. As most of the hunters exited, only a handful remained. Leon, silent and observant, pointed toward one hunter who had chosen to stay. The hunter, taken aback, asked if Leon was referring to him. Leon confirmed and called the hunter to him. Nervous yet curious, the hunter approached. Leon calmly inquired why the hunter had chosen to remain. The hunter, stuttering, explained that he held on to the hope that there was some significance or meaning behind the test. Leon patiently listened to each hunter's reasons for staying, calmly acknowledging their motivations. When Leon pointed to Daesung, he asked the same question. Daesung, silent, outwardly unimpressed by the creation of a guild by someone essentially an S-rank hunter, inwardly pondered the chance. Daesung contemplated joining a guild led by such a powerful individual, and, seizing the opportunity, expressed his belief that Leon would not allow them to face certain death, which was why he had chosen to stay. Leon commended Daesung's attitude, praising his energy and emphasizing his purpose. He explained that he was there to assemble soldiers, and that a soldier must obey. Leon stressed that a soldier must trust the knight's honor and power without question. A hush fell over the gathered hunters as they absorbed his words. With a friendly smile, Leon lightened the atmosphere, explaining that obedience simply meant listening to everything he said. He then swiftly moved on, instructing the hunters to immediately collect their allotted equipment and prepare for the test. Next, they arrived at the Samjin Station yellow-ranked gate, which unveiled a colossal yellow gate positioned prominently in front of the stairs. The hunters were now tasked with facing this formidable challenge. Leon's soldiers stood ready, displaying discipline in their shining armor, while Hari diligently inspected each member of the group. Kim Gang, visibly uncomfortable, complained about the weight of the armor, though he acknowledged the quality of the equipment. He turned to Daesung, informing him of the rarity of such gear, estimating the cost to be at least 10 million won. Daesung gazed at the magnificent shield provided to him, adding that hunters of C and D ranks, including them, likely would never have had the chance to own such top-notch equipment. Observing Leon, who wore no armor, Kim Gang remarked that the king was not wearing any gear. Turning to Han Hari, who was nearby, Daesung hesitated before questioning why Leon didn't wear armor. Hari, with a weird smile, responded that Leon's skin was harder than armor. The revelation astonished Daesung, solidifying his belief in Leon's formidable power. Realizing this, Daesung gained confidence, now certain that nothing harmful would occur in the presence of someone as powerful as Leon. Inside the Yellow Gate, they were met with a horrifying sight, a monster drenched in blood. The soldiers stood frozen in bewilderment, grappling with the shock of what had just happened. Amidst the chaos, Leon stood furiously beside the defeated monster, a stark contrast to the wreckage around him. He was enveloped in a radiant golden aura, his anger ablaze. With intense declaration, Leon expressed his inability to hear those before him any longer, condemning them as dishonorable warriors. His anger erupted, and he proclaimed that they would all crawl like bugs on the ground, meeting their demise there. The golden aura intensified in his eyes as he swung his sword, declaring that this was unwavering justice. Before all of that, in the serene surroundings of the Yellow Gate, Hari accompanied the soldiers. One of the hunters commented on the seemingly peaceful setting, remarking that it felt as if they were heading into battle amid fresh air. Suddenly, a system notification appeared, revealing that they were mercenaries in the outer territory. The message informed them of an ongoing war between two tribes on the Great Plain and instructed them to pick a side to support and bring to victory. Recognizing the nature of the quest, Daesung identified it as an NPC support quest, while another hunter queried if it appeared to be a faction quest. Daesung concurred, noting that it seemed they simply had to choose a side and aid in their victory. However, a hunter raised the crucial question of which side would make their mission easier. As they deliberated, attention was diverted when Daesung pointed toward something in the distance, questioning if it was a monster. As they focused on the horizon, it became apparent that a herd of monsters was approaching, adding an unforeseen layer of challenge. The approaching monster was immense and formidable, with a thunderous roar. Its eyes gleamed brightly as it brandished its weapon. Hari watched as the colossal creature took a threatening stance, and the soldiers stood witness to the scene. Both parties found themselves face to face. One of the monsters, wielding a mighty battle axe, demanded to know their identity. He declared that they were trespassing into the territory of the Battle Axe tribe, flexing his weapon with a resounding roar. He accused them of invading their territory. The hunters stood cluelessly, observing the monsters, while Hari turned to address the seething Leon. She asked him if they should proceed with the quest for now. Leon, maintaining his angry demeanor, told her to proceed as she wished. Hari expressed her gratitude to him, then opened a system window in front of her to communicate with the monsters. She explained that they were mercenaries who had come here seeking rewards by assisting a tribe. The tribe leader acknowledged her words, identifying them as the outsiders mentioned by the chief, and invited the soldiers to come with them. Hari felt uneasy about the situation, all the while Leon continued to simmer with anger in the background. They arrived at a village featuring houses and a massive door encased in the falling snow. In this new location, mercenaries and monster armies stood side by side. The leader of the monsters addressed the assembled group. The chief assessed the mercenaries, expressing his initial impression that they appeared weaker than expected, but deemed it acceptable. Introducing himself as the Battle Axe tribe's chief, Kartakarak, he instructed the mercenaries to support his tribe in a larger-scale war to attain a more honorable death. He declared that the victorious party would earn everything. Leon's anger continued to grow, and with a growl, he muttered that he could no longer tolerate it. Just as Karta conveyed his words, he demanded to know who had uttered those dissenting words. Ignoring the inquiry, Leon stepped forward, still burning with anger, and questioned the concept of honor that Karta was preaching. Leon, covered in a golden hue, growled at the monsters, expressing his contempt that creatures like them dared to harbor lofty dreams. He declared that they were undeserving of such ambitions. Karta, enraged by this insult, shouted at Leon, accusing him of disrespect. In response, Leon lost control, drawing his golden sword and swiftly cutting Karta's neck. Blood splattered into the air, some of it landing on the faces of the hunters. Amidst the gruesome scene, Leon introduced himself, asserting that the monsters were not honorable warriors and that they would crawl on the ground like bugs, meeting their demise there. His anger continued to burn as he displayed deep prejudice, referring to the monsters as orcs. Bursting with fury, he declared that this was unwavering justice. With an astonishing kill streak close to 9 million orcs, Leon had earned the moniker of the Orc Slayer, becoming a legendary figure. The other orcs, shocked by the sudden death of their chief, screamed in fury and disbelief. They pointed toward Leon and his army, labeling them as enemies and vowing to kill them all. A horde of enraged orcs rushed forward to attack. Leon commanded the hunters to raise their shields in a circle to repel the oncoming attacks. Bewildered and frustrated, the hunters, realizing their rank status, struggled to comprehend the unexpected turn of events. In the midst of the ferocious onslaught, a chaotic clash began between Leon's forces and the enraged orc army within the icy surroundings of the Yellow Gate. As the orcs advanced, vowing to kill the hunters with evident anger in their demeanor, the hunters nervously encouraged each other to block the impending assault. Fear gripped them, unsure how they could possibly emerge victorious against such a fierce enemy. In a surprising turn, a hunter managed to successfully block an orc's attack, surprising even himself. Suddenly, a window appeared in front of him, listing copious amount of traits granted by Leon, including defense fortification, reinforcement, bravery, thick skin, and more. The revelation of these newfound buffs instilled a sense of hope and resilience in him. Still in shock from the first window, the hunter was confronted with another, proclaiming him as the most prolific orc slayer among primates, listing a set of effects. A 50% casualty chance against orcs, inducing terror in orcs in his presence, and an increase in resentment against them. The hunters struggled to fully comprehend these newfound abilities, but the overwhelming flow of information filled them with excitement. Another window popped up, assigning various titles, each indicating unique powers and achievements. Empowered by these newfound abilities, the hunters grew excited and more confident. Following Leon's earlier advice, they raised their shields, pushing the orcs back and strategically waiting for the right moment to strike. One by one, they defeated the orcs. Now devastated, the remaining orcs began calling out to their dear god of warriors. However, Leon, infuriated by the orcs' call for God, erupted in anger. He expressed his outrage at the audacity of these beasts crying for God in his presence. In his seething anger, Leon commanded his soldiers to cut the throats of the orcs, intensifying the conflict and solidifying his ruthless determination. He issued another command, instructing his soldiers to take the heads of the orcs and insult their perceived deity. Following this, Leon summoned his powerful stallion, leaving the orcs in a state of bewilderment and fear. Mounted on his formidable steed, Leon became a force of destruction, rushing through the orcs beneath the hooves of his great stallion. Seamlessly wielding sword and spear in both hands, Leon ran across the field, cutting the throats of orcs with relentless and fearsome determination. His burning golden eyes glared with intensity as he growled, vowing to kill them all. The fierce battle with the orcs concluded, leaving the battlefield flooded with the lifeless bodies of the defeated creatures. Leon's soldiers stood beside the fallen enemy. The knight raised his sword high and commanded his army to scream triumphantly, declaring it an honorable victory. The soldiers, confused by the request, expressed their excitement awkwardly. Amidst this, Hari anxiously addressed Leon's royal title. In response, Leon questioned her about the matter. Hesitatingly, she asked him why he had chosen to slaughter the orcs. In response, Leon coldly asked if there was a reason required to kill them. He displayed a cold and ruthless demeanor, and she hesitated for a moment before revealing that the quest had actually been about helping them. Leon once again burst into anger, fiercely dismissing the idea of aiding orcs as complete nonsense. He expressed his strong aversion, declaring that he would rather throw himself into a pit of fire than assist those he referred to as mere green beasts. Growling with intensity, he went further, stating that, in his view, they didn't deserve an ounce of respect. He deemed their very existence evil and asserted that they did not deserve to live. The atmosphere became tense as Leon's deep-seated animosity toward the orcs agitated him. He dismissed any notion of comparing the aggressiveness of beasts to the bravery of knights, asserting that orcs, despite their bravery, were nothing more than sickening beasts. He instructed Hari not to treat them like humans. Internally, she labeled Leon as a racist, though she respectfully addressed his royal title, suggesting that there might be kind orcs somewhere in the world. Leon, with a faint smile on his lips, quietly murmured to Hari, cautioning her to keep in mind that, in his view, the only kind orcs were the ones that were dead. Orcs were regarded as the most nefarious beings on Earth as the gates opened onto the real world. Many orc survivors stepped onto the planet, and although the inhabitants of Earth welcomed them warmly, the newcomers struggled to fit in, eventually transforming into demonic humans. From the moment they set foot on Earth, the orcs unleashed a wave of bloodshed. The scene then shifted to Yappy, who stood atop a rocky perch. Its resonant voice proclaimed their arrival at the designated location. With predetermined order, Yappy asserted that executing the task in this place could lead to comprehensive annihilation. Nearby, Leon and Hari were positioned with their heads concealed by cloth to mask their hair color. Leon declared his readiness to risk everything, and the atmosphere grew ominous as Yappy initiated a core overload, pushing its capacity to the brink. Operating an alarming 99.9%, A radiant golden aura enveloped the machine, spreading in all directions. The revelation that its core was overloaded and the cooling system malfunctioning sent a shock through Hari. Grimly, Yappy disclosed that the degradation of its fuel rod had accelerated and that core fusion was underway. Abruptly, the system began to collapse, and Yappy threw it into the stream's water. Hari speculated that the emerging tube might have been expelled from its body, a notion that prompted Leon's visible repulsion and swift reprimand. In response to her confusion about the acceptability of the plan, Hari expressed concern over the potential release of radioactive material into the water and questioned whether this act violated the honorable code of a Night King. After a thoughtful pause, Leon offered a reassuring smile and urged both Hari and Yappy to heed his words. He explained that combating these green beasts was not a conventional war, but was more akin to exterminating wild creatures. He challenged the notion of honor in such a hunt, asserting that hunters prioritized efficiency over honor. Hari perceived his perspective as discriminatory, detecting a tinge of racism, yet Leon remained steadfast. In his view, a good orc in this context was simply one that was already deceased. Elsewhere, an enraged orc was depicted ruthlessly attacking an adversary, while another celebrated with gleeful abandon the shattering of Galdin's head by Grokter. Amid the chaotic aftermath, a third orc joined the chorus of praises, commending Grokter for his exceptional skill. In a somber tone, Grokter revealed that he had perished in the intense battle and informed his comrades that the God of Worries would now transport them to the eternal fighting range. In response, one orc suggested a toast to celebrate their victory. Determined to honor the deity, the orc strode forward and seized a bucket, declaring that it was time for a drink. With purposeful steps, the orc approached a nearby stream, filled the bucket with water, and in memory of the fallen warrior, raised it to his mouth and drank deeply. However, as he consumed the liquid, he noticed an unusual taste. Intrigued, he inspected the bucket's contents and observed a subtle prickliness and itchiness. After a moment of contemplation, he rationalized that spilled blood might have contaminated the water. Nonchalantly discarding the bucket, he strolled away unfazed. Yet as time passed, discomfort set in. Soon, he found himself grunting in pain as the tainted water took effect, and overwhelmed by agony, he frantically summoned a witch doctor. Tears streamed down his face as he repeatedly called for help, his labored breaths growing heavier with each moment. The distress was not confined to him alone. Other orcs emerged from their nests, their anguished screams piercing the air in a chorus of pleas as they joined in calling for the witch doctor, desperately urging for salvation. The entire community was caught in the throes of inexplicable torment. When the witch doctor arrived, confusion marred his features as he struggled to categorize the phenomenon as either a curse or an enchantment. Puzzled, he grappled with understanding the nature of the affliction until a sudden revelation struck him. It's the wrath of the Lionheart. Leon screamed, astride his powerful stallion, charged into the fray with relentless force. He crushed orcs beneath the weight of his mount, sending one lifeless body soaring through the air. With eyes ablaze with golden fury, Leon bellowed commands, urging the elimination of every beast without sparing any survivors. At that moment, a notification window materialized before the soldiers, signaling the commencement of corruption resistance. Empowered by this support, the soldiers mobilized swiftly, seizing the opportunity to gain free experience points. As the coordinated assault on the orc stronghold commenced, a surge of soldiers rushed toward the entrance of the orc premises, eager to seize the advantage. Despite the relentless onslaught, some orcs clung to life, though in grievous conditions. In their final moments, one surviving orc, struggling for breath, released a defiant scream that branded the humans as cowardly. Shortly after, a notification window materialized with a stark message declaring that the Battle Axe tribe had been eradicated. The gravity of the situation settled in as the notification named the entire orc species as the new adversary. Hari, visibly shocked by the unfolding events, processed the information. The drama took another twist when another window abruptly appeared, proclaiming that the orcs had now become a common enemy and that the soldiers were tasked with eliminating every orc within the hidden quest field. Amidst the aftermath of battle, Hari observed the new quest parameters displayed on the window while standing among fallen orcs and Leon's victorious army. She hastened to inform Leon of the sudden change. In response, Leon, with a confident smile, assured her that the alteration was acceptable and even deemed it a more fitting battleground. Addressing his soldiers, he passionately declared that the moment had arrived to champion light and justice. This proclamation was interrupted by the thunderous screams of an enraged orc. Leon swiftly turned to face the disturbance. The enraged creature accused the soldiers of cursing the river, its eyes burning with hatred as it denounced them as evil bastards and cowards unworthy of the title warriors. The air thickened with animosity and disdain. Incensed by the orc's accusations, Leon erupted in anger, dismissing the claims as foolish. In a fiery retort, he asserted that mere observation revealed them to be nothing more than inferior beasts, a source of shame rather than honor. Unmoved by the orc's protest, he declared that even were the orc to gouge out its own eyes in penance, the heinous sin committed could not be redeemed. Coldly dismissing the creature's worth, Leon offered it a chance at atonement by taking its own life, branding it a dirty beast. This suggestion only infuriated the orc further. In a surge of defiance, it enveloped itself in a swirling green aura while proclaiming that it would never forgive Leon. Unfazed, Leon drew his golden spear, amused by the sight of a beast wielding chains. With unyielding determination, he charged forward, thrusting his spear with fierce intent. A torrent of golden rays erupted from the thrust, striking the orc and piercing through it. Despite the brutal attack, the orc remained alive and defiant, arrogantly declaring that it was too late. Ignoring the severity of its wounds, the creature rose again, gathering the green aura around itself. In a fit of fury, it proclaimed that a powerful force was on its way. The green aura intensified, swirling around the orc and forming a circle that connected to the sky. One by one, the remaining orcs assembled on this ominous platform, their collective presence giving rise to an impending and formidable force. Bewildered by the spectacle, Hari turned to Leon in shock and inquired about the phenomenon. Leon responded nonchalantly, explaining that it was an offering to their god, as was expected of these uncivilized beasts. The green aura surrounding the orcs darkened, transforming into a foreboding black circle. Suddenly, a massive hand emerged from the blackened vortex, sending shockwaves through all who were present. Both human and orc onlookers stood stunned. Amid the chaos, another notification window appeared, heralding the commencement of a hidden quest. The window detailed that the eyes and right arm of Great Gokrok had emerged from the ominous black circle, with a colossal arm looming over the orcs as it performed an offering. A subsequent window materialized with a clear directive: eliminate Gokrok, the orc god of enchantment. The gravity of the situation deepened as the participants recognized the magnitude of the foe before them. Gokrok, the enchantment god, emerged fully from the magic circle alongside his massive hand, encircled by a complete green aura. Leon mounted his stallion and stood before Gokrok, his immense hand encircling the ominous eye. Gokrok inspected Leon's stats through its vast eye as Leon stood defiantly before the looming hand. Then, a new notification, enveloped in a green aura, declared that Leon could not be permitted to live and that Gokrok must kill him. Scanning intently, Gokrok aimed at Leon with a spark and emitted a light aura intended to slay him. The green light fell directly on the ground where Leon had been standing with the stallion. Hari's concerned inquiry about the well-being of King Leon reverberated through the camp as a deep, ominous voice from Gokrok filled the air once again, asserting that Leon was aligned with an entity akin to Gokrok. The entity then questioned Leon about the deity who protected him. Recalling Gokrok's previous words, Leon affirmed that a god similar to Gokrok safeguarded him, adding that he was shielded by the divine law and the blessing of the arrow shield. Enveloped in his golden aura, Leon stood unwavering. With unrestrained fury, he denounced any comparison between Gokrok and a true god, his eyes burning with hatred toward orcs and their deity. He roared that Gokrok's claim of godhood was nothing more than the pretense of a mere captain among a horde of beasts. In a burst of anger, Leon drew his golden sword and charged toward Gokrok atop a stallion consumed by fury. He declared himself the king of Lionheart and vowed not to tolerate Gakrok's existence. Losing his composure, Gakrok brandished his ominous hand and glaring eye, labeling Leon an inferior mortal and threatening him with impending regret and demise. Charging his fist, the beast aimed at Leon, who rode steadfastly toward him, swinging his sword with furious precision. As Leon slashed his golden blade through the air, Gakrok braced himself for the fierce battle that followed. In a swift and decisive maneuver, Leon severed Gakrok's hand from his arm, leaving the enchantment god in utter shock. Amid agonizing screams, Gakrok's eyes widened in disbelief as he stared at his detached hand lying at a distance. Puzzled by the intense pain he experienced, pain that did not seem to belong to his original body, Gakrok cried out in anguish. In the midst of these painful cries, an orc called out with genuine concern, asking if Gakrok was all right. At the same time, the orc's mind raced as he recognized Leon's sword as the holy sword of radiance. Leon, surrounded by a shimmering golden aura, advanced steadily toward his foe with determined strides. Gakrok mused on the possibility that Leon might be the legendary orc executioner and demon slayer, the valiant knight who emerged as the lone survivor from a world plagued by nightmares. After weighing his options for a brief moment, Gakrok's PTSD flared up, then chose to retreat, fading into the shadows and disappearing from the scene. As his devoted orc follower desperately tried to halt his departure, Gakrok dissolved into thin air. His final words, uttered with grave intensity, serve as a chilling warning that the orc's audacious actions would not go unpunished. The orc follower remained frozen in disbelief, grappling with the staggering realization that their deity had abandoned them in the heat of battle. Leon approached the perplexed orc purposefully, his disdain dripping from every word as he mocked the notion of expecting divine intervention, especially from a race he deemed as worthless as orcs. Unyielding, the orc met Leon's gaze with unwavering resolve, demanding to know what fate had befallen their god. Drawing his staff with resolute determination, the orc solemnly pledged to avenge his fallen comrades. In a blur of motion, he swiftly severed the orc's face, extinguishing its voice in a single brutal act. With a faint expression of sorrow, Leon praised the orc's feeble attempt to try and fight, reiterating his belief that orcs were unworthy of survival. Suddenly, a status window appeared, announcing the completion of all hidden quests. The trait Orc Hunter was now applied to all participants, granting an extra 30% damage against orcs, while the trait War Knight's Men-at-Arms was bestowed upon them, providing 20% more physical attack resistance when fighting alongside knights with the War Knight trait. Daesung pondered the newfound physical resistance, a trait typically associated with tankers, while other soldiers expressed a mix of excitement and shock at the 30% damage boost, though they lamented that it was only effective against orcs. Nonetheless, they welcomed the added physical attack resistance. In the midst of the commotion, Leon bellowed orders for the collection of all loot, emphasizing that victory entitled one to claim the spoils. The soldiers swiftly gathered the treasure, with one advising a focus on items from the ranks of Great Warrior and Advanced Warrior, particularly the equipment of the witch doctors. As the soldiers busied themselves with the loot, Leon remained silent, keeping watch over them until Hari called out from behind. Leon inquired about the matter as Hari pointed toward an object. Upon inspection, he recognized it as the severed hand of the self-proclaimed god, which Dr. Gakrok had revealed himself to be a divine orc. Shortly afterward, Yappi began emitting an unfamiliar voice. Leon asked if Yappi had a message to convey. Yappi relayed news from the steel god, informing Leon that a significant amount of mana was emanating from the beast's amputated arm. He proposed using the Holy Grail to absorb the mana, a method that would grant him power. With a decisive nod, he affirmed his choice to extract the mana from Gakrok's severed arm. Retrieving his golden cup, its surface emanating a radiant holy aura, he carefully aimed its opening at the detached limb. As the glass channeled its golden rays, they intertwined gracefully with the mana, forming a shimmering cascade of light that enveloped the ominous arm. Leon observed this phenomenon with a blend of fascination and determination as the golden aura gradually wrapped around the limb, steadily absorbing its potent energy. In that moment, he reflected on the unique power resonating with divine essence. He surmised that while Gakrok favored the worship of beasts, he could not accept orcs who failed to love the other creations of God, for Leon regarded them all as embodiments of evil that must be eradicated. In the midst of his contemplation, the voice of the goddess Ariana reached him. With respect, he acknowledged that she had granted him her voice even before any ritual was performed. Curious about her sudden exertion, Leon listened as Ariana explained that the mana from the beast made it effortless for her to speak. She conveyed that she had come because she needed his decision-making abilities and that, using this energy, she could restore the power of a sacred object. Surprised by her words, Leon hesitated before the god of war intervened, suggesting that the Lionheart King to chose the holy sword. However, the goddess quickly silenced him, insisting that she would respect whatever choice Leon made. Silent contemplation enveloped him as he weighed her offer, reflecting on his possession of 4 sacred items: the holy spear, the holy sword, the holy grail, and the lion heart, and recognizing the overwhelming power of the holy sword at present, he decided instead to focus on recovering the power of the holy grail. Upon hearing his decision, the goddess agreed, and the process was initiated as planned by the knight. The golden holy grail became enveloped in radiant rays that surged upward in a powerful golden aura. Leon held it lightly, sensing both its weight and its significance. At that moment, Hari appeared and called out to him, drawing his attention. She informed him that there was something he needed to see. Then he pointed toward her head, questioning the whereabouts of Sir Yappy. Before they could explain further, both heard a desperate, pleading scream. Following the sound, Hari and Leon discovered a pool of blood in the distance. To their astonishment, a soldier lay on the ground, writhing in agony and pleading for help. His whole body was tied, and his anguished screams reverberated through the air. In his distress, he cursed Sir Yappy, denouncing it as a stupid robot. Meanwhile, Yappy exhibited signs of agitation. Its red light glared brightly, signaling a heightened state of anger. The automaton had tightly bound the soldier with a rope, and the man continued to scream and groan in agony. The soldier's cries drew other soldiers to the scene, all of whom witnessed Yappy's actions. When Leon and Hari arrived, Hari expressed her surprise at the sight, while Leon maintained his customary calm demeanor. The soldier began voicing complaints about Sir Yappy, but Leon abruptly cut him off with a cold, stern warning to watch his words if he wished to keep his tongue intact. Shocked by Leon's defense of the automaton, the soldier questioned whether the king truly stood up for the robot. Leon responded by reprimanding him for addressing a knight so casually, leaving the soldier with only a look of confusion. Leon then turned his attention to Sir Yappy, inquiring about the situation. The automaton revealed that the soldier was indeed guilty of theft. The accusation stunned the soldier, who tried to deny any wrongdoing by claiming it was all a misunderstanding. However, Leon's expression grew grim as he declared that the truth would emerge once the soldier's belongings were searched. He ordered Hari to conduct the search, and she agreed. As Hari approached, the soldier abruptly told her to halt, only to be interrupted by his own protests questioning whether they truly believed the words of a robot. Disregarding his objections, Hari continued her search and soon uncovered a pouch of loot. Without hesitation, she removed it and, upon opening it, was shocked to find the heart of the greatest warrior orc, the most valuable loot from the Orc Gate. Confronting the soldier, Leon demanded an explanation for committing such a grave sin of swindling loot. The soldier continued to deny any wrongdoing, insisting that the matter was a misunderstanding and strongly asserting his innocence with a distressed expression. In response, Leon unsheathed his holy sword and, with swift precision, severed one of the soldier's hands. The soldier watched in disbelief as his hand flew through the air, landing with a heavy thud. A surge of excruciating pain coursed through his body as he realized that his arm had been cut off. Leon then addressed the assembled troops in a firm and unwavering tone. He acknowledged the disparities between the laws of the land and his own uncompromising principles, while asserting his authority as the military leader serving the king of Lionheart. He reminded them that their allegiance was not to the conventional laws they had known on Earth, but to his own edicts, and he made it clear that those who could not abide by his rules were free to voice their objections. With grave emphasis, he warned that any soldier caught stealing would face the same punishment he had just meted out having their hands severed. He admitted that such laws might appear harsh, especially for those accustomed to modern norms. But in the lawless state beyond the gate, strict discipline was deemed necessary. The soldiers, though afraid and confused by the severity of the punishment, could not help but feel a surge of excitement over the incredible buffs they had received. One soldier remarked, in his own internal comparisons, that it was as if he had been upgraded from a D rank to a C rank, feeling significantly stronger than before. As the shock began to wear off, many of the troops grew convinced that the thief had indeed erred grievously, and they found themselves more inclined to uphold the austere laws of the Lionheart Kingdom. In that tense atmosphere, a soldier stepped forward to address Leon with the proper deference, referring to him as Majesty. Leon then inquired about the soldier's name, prompting the man to remove his helmet and introduce himself as Gu Daesung. Leon continued by questioning his motive for coming forward. Daesung, with a respectful yet hesitant tone, stuttered out whether the thief might be allowed to retrieve his severed arm. Leon's expression hardened as he clarified that allowing such a reversal would undermine the very purpose of the punishment. The soldiers stuttered again, acknowledging that they lived by different values and that the rules he had just explained were absolute. However, Daesung wished Leon to give the man a chance since Leon had only let them know about the rules. Focusing on his precious Holy Grail, Leon then advised the soldier to appreciate the presence of a comrade who spoke with reason. Utilizing the magical power within his Holy Grail, Leon took decisive action. After a brief moment of concentrated resolve, he poured a divine liquid, created within the confines of the Holy Grail, onto the soldier's severed arm. The soldier was struck by shock as he observed the mesmerizing golden liquid dripping onto his limb, leaving him bewildered about its true nature. Around him, the other soldiers watched in amazement as his arm miraculously regenerated before their eyes. Witnessing this astonishing spectacle, Daesung found himself filled with wonder and a touch of apprehension. He contemplated the limitations of even an S-rank soldier who could only replace a lost limb rather than regenerate it completely. The incident led him to ponder the extraordinary extent of Lionheart's combat prowess and healing abilities, a power that far surpassed that of any S-rank healer. Such immense strength in a single individual seemed almost unfathomable. Once his arm had fully regenerated, Leon's fury remained unabated. He ordered the soldier to leave his presence immediately, cautioning him that while forgiveness would be granted on this one occasion out of respect for the laws of their realm, his privileges had been forfeited. The soldier, overcome with remorse, expressed his gratitude for Leon's leniency. Leon then turned his attention to the rest of the troops, announcing that those who wished to join his military could remain, while those who did not could collect their fair share of the loot and depart. The soldiers, perceiving this as an opportunity they had long desired, eagerly embraced the proposition. Without delay, Leon declared that training would commence immediately, firmly believing in their collective capabilities. He instructed them to swiftly gather the loot, signaling that their departure was imminent. The soldiers then danced around to assemble the spoils. In the midst of this activity, Hari approached Leon with a questioning look. When asked about the next endeavor, Leon responded with a calm smile, explaining that the following session would involve rigorous physical training. The scene then transitioned back to Earth on a radiant, sunny day. All the soldiers gathered in a spacious training space, where a hunter addressed Daesung, inquiring if he had attended the gate raid. Daesung, slightly scratching his hair, affirmed his eagerness to participate, though he was advised by Kim to take some rest, fearing that he might overwork himself. Daesung chuckled in agreement. Before long, Hari called for everyone's attention, announcing the entrance of the king, Leon Dragonia Lionheart, and Sir Yappy. Instantly, every soldier fell silent and stood in a respectful line, awaiting further orders as the atmosphere brimmed with anticipation and discipline. Leon entered alongside Yappy as the soldiers awaited the arrival of their leaders. He addressed the gathered troops, congratulating them on passing what he termed a simple test. Acknowledging that they currently lacked certain skills required of his military force, he assured them that these deficiencies would be remedied through rigorous training. Daesung, his expression thoughtful, wondered silently if Leon was insinuating that the raid on the Orc Gate had been merely a preliminary test. Leon continued his explanation, revealing that his observations during combat had uncovered various issues, the most critical being their poor physical condition. The soldiers, perplexed by this revelation, especially given that they were at D and C rank hunters, listened intently as he announced his decision to initiate physical training in strict accordance with his kingdom's standing army manual. Many were shocked at the mention of such a manual, their minds picturing some form of archaic muscle training from the Middle Ages. Leon clarified that while the training of the body indeed involved muscle work, it extended far beyond simple exercises. He explained that they would push their muscles to their absolute limits and then surpass them, emphasizing the importance of endurance and strength. Recounting the legend of the Grail Knight, Sir Gratis, known as the Giant Slayer and the creator of the training manual, Leon recalled Sir Gratis' words that humans grow stronger when tested and challenged. The soldiers absorbed the wisdom of his words, each silently contemplating the trials they must face to achieve greater strength. In a grim tone, Leon bellowed that soldiers tasked with guarding the kingdom must train harder than farmers, stressing that Sir Gratis' teachings highlighted the most efficient method of training. He asserted that they must push their bodies to the extreme, tearing down their muscles only to rebuild them stronger, a process that not only toughened their muscles but also sharpened their reflexes, helping them avoid further injuries. His words shocked and frightened the soldiers as he ordered them to engage in physical combat with one another. With a cold, heartless command, he ordered them to push themselves until their muscles were shredded, their fists broken, and even their bones fractured if necessary. Despite a low, dissenting voice from Daesung, who admitted that such extreme measures could lead to the breakdown of their bodies, Leon's gaze swept over the troops as he questioned their doubts. He reminded them that he was their king, and his authority was absolute. With measured authority, he retrieved his golden cup and urged them to consider themselves fortunate to be under the guardianship of the Holy Grail wielder. Suddenly, Kim addressed Daesung, informing him that his injuries were gradually healing. Daesung, astonished, watched as his wounds closed miraculously before his eyes. Leon then revealed that all warriors near the sacred Grail would experience healing effects, and that drinking the holy water would help regenerate torn muscles and realign fractured bones. He granted them a 5-hour time frame to demolish everything within their sight, emphasizing that they must be ready to endure attacks while launching their own assaults. With a final, chilling remark, he warned that if anyone remained unscathed after 5 hours, he would personally beat them up. After delivering his decree, Leon walked away, entrusting the remainder of the task to Sir Yappi. The soldiers were left stunned, exchanging uncertain glances as they tried to identify their first target. Suddenly, Yappi, poised atop the platform, detected a fraudulent act among the ranks. With swift precision, it lashed out at the soldiers, warning them that the training was to be conducted through suggested fights, and any deviation would result in the use of armed forces. Chaos ensued as soldiers began attacking one another in a frenzy of rage and confusion. Daesung cried out in shock, questioning the sanity of their actions, but before he could fully comprehend the situation, he too became a target as a punch landed on him. In the midst of the melee, it became clear that this violent routine was merely the daily regimen for the hunters who had pledged to become Lionheart's knights. Later that morning, precisely at noon, the soldiers, tired and badly injured from the intense training, gathered in a spacious training ground. Leon and Hari stood before them to distribute lunch from a large liquid tank. A few soldiers exchanged curious glances, wondering if the tank contained nothing more than water, as they prepared themselves for the trials that lay ahead. One of the soldiers inquired about the tank's contents, prompting Hari to explain that it was indeed their lunch. Leon clarified that the liquid was water mixed with salt and sugar. The soldiers were shocked and questioned why salt and sugar were added. Leon elaborated that, according to the Standing Army's training manual, soldiers were provided only with enough sustenance to stave off death. Proper food would be served once they became full-fledged soldiers. An hour later, tactical training began. Leon commanded the troops to split into 5 groups and attempt to halt his charge as he rode his horse. Despite their efforts, his formidable charge sent every soldier flying. By 9 p.m., exhausted from the grueling training, all the soldiers had passed out into a deep sleep. The session had been hellish, yet they endured it thanks to Hari's diligent care during the quiet night. Entering their room with a tray laden with steamed sweet potato, Hari gently woke them and encouraged them to indulge in late-night snacks to regain their energy. In their hunger, they attacked the tray as if they had never seen food before, a part of Leon's secret plan that no hunter could have foreseen. Earlier that morning, Daesung had practiced his sword alone. He breathed heavily, feeling the weight of his shield as he wielded it alongside his sword. Reflecting on the effort, he noted that the shield was heavier than anticipated and required significant maneuvering. Moreover, he discovered that the postures available in the shield formation were too restrictive. Contemplating his strategy, Daesung realized that to effectively use his sword within the formation, he needed to focus on honing his stabbing techniques. At that moment, Leon's voice broke the silence. Daesung was stunned to see his majesty standing before him, composed and commanding. Leon instructed him to continue his training, correct his posture, and attempt the stabbing motion once more. Daesung stuttered in acknowledgement and resumed practice. As Leon critically observed his movements, he noted Daesung's otherwise adept handling of the sword and shield in various directions, yet declared his steps entirely wrong. Confused by the criticism, Daesung drew closer as Leon explained that he had a habit of lowering his shield while stabbing. The shield, Leon emphasized, must also protect the shoulder of his right ally, even if that ally was not in view. Grasping the tactic, Daesung timidly asked why this instruction was necessary. Leon elaborated that lowering the shield created a gap, exposing vulnerabilities that an enemy could exploit. Understanding the point, Daesung inquired if the strategy involved soldiers with shields holding off the enemies while knights charged forward to engage them. Leon confirmed that his approach, the hammer and anvil tactic, was indeed his way. Daesung expressed doubt, stating that the opponents they faced were monsters, and he doubted such creatures could be defeated with that method. Leon paused before growling, questioning how anyone could presume to teach him to fight otherworldly monsters. Quickly, Daesung interjected that he was not trying to instruct, but only to inquire. Leon then explained that the monsters at the gate were nothing compared to the countless creatures he had faced in his own world. He revealed that in his previous battles he had encountered towering giants over 20 meters tall, trolls with infinite regeneration, multi-headed snakes, spiders ridden by goblins, and even a dragon capable of crushing mountains with a single hand. He stressed the necessity of mastering various hunting methods to confront such diverse threats and of adapting to unexpected situations. Leon emphasized that these skills could only be honed through real-life experience. Turning to Daesung, he inquired whether the soldier possessed decades of experience fighting monsters while serving the goddess, and whether he carried the triumphant spirit needed to bring glory to any battlefield, regardless of the weapon he wielded. Daesung listened silently. Leon explained that this was why he taught soldiers to focus on being well-rounded as knights. He emphasized that honing even a single skill could significantly increase one's chances of survival. Clenching his fist, Daesung stammered that he aspired to achieve more than just that. Leon questioned whether Daesung truly dreamed of becoming a knight. In a stuttering manner, Daesung had once wondered how a lowly peasant like himself could dare entertain such thoughts. Leon challenged this perception by asking if every knight was necessarily an aristocrat. He advised Daesung not to impose the logic of this world onto his kingdom, explaining that knighthood was not restricted by birth, but defined by a voluntary commitment to a noble duty. In Leon's view, a knight was one who bravely protected the people, upheld righteousness, and pledged unwavering loyalty to both the goddess and the populace. Anyone who made such a divine promise could become a knight regardless of their origins. Moved by these words, Daesung, with his sword held tightly in one hand and his other hand clenched into a fist, resolved to become a knight. The scene then shifted to the United States Magic Tower branch, where an ominous voice reverberated through a dimly lit room. An old man sat before a purple magic orb. Call out into it, addressing the creature as a great being and expressing his faith in its eventual return. He waited patiently for guidance when suddenly a voice emanated from the magic ball, branding the man a fool and commanding him to bow without hesitation. The old man immediately knelt, submitting to the authority of the stone. The magic ball then began instructing him, explaining that it would impart wisdom and truth if proper preparations and offerings were made. Still kneeling, The old man wondered if the voice of the magic ball had changed, but the ball quickly commanded him to cast a space and transfer a spell onto a crystal. It explained that this action was necessary to ensure the crystal could be blasted away in an emergency. Confused, the old man stuttered, questioning the rationale behind destroying the crystal when he believed it was meant for the creature to descend to Earth. In response, the voice from the crystal harshly chastised him, again branding him a fool and accusing him of madness for presuming that the creature would willingly walk into death. Bewildered by the angry outburst, the old man listened as the voice reiterated its instructions, clarifying that it had no intention of ever setting foot on a planet where that monster resided. The revelation left him utterly shocked. The creature contemplated how to eliminate him. It spoke of its thoughts, declaring that now was the ideal moment, given that he still lacked an army. It then commanded the mage tower master to ensure they entered the same gate. Once again, the creature's PTSD flared. It viewed Leon as the harbinger of its kin, hoping its plan would succeed. Meanwhile, the day of the Pantheon Guild standing army graduation ceremony had finally arrived. Hari questioned Leon about his decision to raid the Yellow Gate with trainee soldiers, and Leon replied firmly in the affirmative. Hari's concerns about her own and Sir Yappy's potential exclusion from the raid were met with reassurances, while Jinsu expressed apprehension over bearing the workload, a concern met with a cheerful giggle from Hari, who wished him luck. Leon then addressed the assembled soldiers, who stood at attention before him. He acknowledged their dedication over the past 4 weeks of training and commended them for proving their strength. Cutting his speech short, he emphasized that the time had come to truly showcase their capabilities. He declared that they would raid the gate, a feat normally beyond their scope, and explained that once inside, they would encounter a divinity to which they would pledge their service. With a resounding proclamation, he urged, in his own commanding manner, for the Pantheon to go forth with passion. The group, comprising 49 hunters of D rank along with 1 hunter from the Hunter Association and led by Leon Dragonia Lionheart, entered the Yellow Gate. Outside, Hari and Yappy watched the group's departure. Hari reassured Yappy that nothing adverse would occur as long as the king was among them. However, Yappy suddenly alerted her to a troubling discrepancy. While there appeared to be 51 individuals, including Leon and the soldiers, Yappy's count indicated that 52 had entered the gate. Hari, taken aback by this revelation, quickly opened the stat window. There, concealed beneath a mysterious cloak, a person had also entered the gate alongside the soldiers. Despite zooming in on the cloaked figure's face, the cloth covering rendered their identity unrevealed. Before Hari could process the anomaly further, Sir Yappy sprang into action. Ignoring Hari's desperate attempts to stop him, he leaped from her side, urging immediate action. Yappy dashed toward the gate, startling everyone nearby. Despite Hari's imploring for him to wait, he had already disappeared into the gate's depths. Desperation tinged her voice as she ran after him, urging him to stop, uncertain of what the mysterious presence might portend. Hari pushed herself to the limit as she sprinted toward the gate, her focus solely on reaching it. In her haste, she stopped as if there's a barrier closing the gate, and her face collided harshly with the ground. Shaken and disoriented, she struggled to recover as a peculiar sight caught her attention. Along with the others, she was astonished to see the gate wavering and the mana levels fluctuating, causing its color to shift from yellow to red. The sudden change left everyone bewildered, and as she rose, Hari stood speechless before the now red-hued gate, unsure of what had caused this phenomenon. Inside the gate, chaos had erupted. Monsters overran the area, and a fierce battle had begun. Amid the turmoil, a soldier fought valiantly against a monstrous foe, struggling yet determined to defeat it. The scene shifted to Leon, riding his stallion and poised to charge into battle alongside his soldiers. Their shock deepened when they realized that the creatures they faced were not ordinary monsters, but demons. It quickly became apparent that this was no ordinary gate, but a demon gate. Although Leon's keen blue eyes took in the ominous atmosphere, he could not fully comprehend the situation at first. He swiftly ordered his soldiers to raise their shields, recognizing the danger inherent in the magic square in which they stood. Riding ahead on his stallion, Leon drew his sword and commanded his troops to form up and maintain their shields. The soldiers, though bewildered by the daunting prospect of facing demons, looked to Leon for direction. Unfazed, he fortified their formation with the discipline of a Lionheart's testudo and signaled for them to advance. Among the soldiers, Jinsu's concern grew as he noticed others pressing forward into the demon gate rather than retreating. He wondered in his mind if they were not afraid, his shock deepening as he observed every soldier's eyes blazing with fierce determination to vanquish the enemy. During his status inspection, Jinsu was astonished to discover the presence of a Lionheart's aura enveloping the troops. This aura granted them various defensive enhancements, including resistance against charges, fortified fortifications, reinforced armor, and heightened senses, which surpassed even those of a commander-level buff and were applied uniformly to everyone. As the demons began to take notice of the advancing force, their attention shifted to the impending battle. The demons roared furiously, their eyes ablaze with rage as Leon and his army advanced swiftly, swinging their weapons high. Sensing the impending onslaught, Leon commanded his soldiers to raise their shields in preparation. With both armies now facing each other, the tension in the air was palpable, punctuated only by the horrific roars of the demons. As the enemy charged forward, Leon ordered his soldiers to block their attacks. In response, they halted their advance and held their shields aloft, forming a solid barrier against the demon onslaught. Jinsu was surprised to see a fellow hunter named Ven struggling to block a bloodhound's attack. He noted that the hunters were relying on sheer willpower to defend themselves. Shocked by this revelation, Jinsu wondered what might have occurred during the past 4 weeks of training to bring them to this state. Meanwhile, Leon continued to lead the charge on his stallion, urging his soldiers to take one step forward at a time. He directed them to push the enemy back and launch a counterattack with renewed energy. The soldiers responded with a barrage of strikes that drove the enemy to the ground. Leon cautioned them not to give the demons any opportunity to retaliate, advising them to exploit every opening to deliver decisive blows. With relentless determination, they crushed the fallen demons beneath their feet, their blades stabbing mercilessly into the heads of their foes. Under Leon's persistent guidance to press forward and drive the enemy back, the assault continued unabated. Jinsu watched in astonishment, struggling to comprehend the ferocity of the soldiers' onslaught. His surprise deepened when he spotted a formidable demon troll among the enemy ranks. He shouted a warning and urged his comrades to be cautious and alert. As the battle raged, the demon troll advanced menacingly toward the soldiers, instilling fear in their hearts. Its powerful strikes rivaled those of an A-rank hunter, and its fierce roars heightened the terror of the encounter. In the midst of the chaos, soldiers gathered to resist its attack. Led by Squad 3, Captain Daesung and his squad readied themselves to confront the creature directly. Even though the demon troll was powerful, its attacks paled in comparison to the charged assault of Leon's forces, who used their shields to deflect the onslaught. The soldiers braced themselves against the relentless assault of the creatures when suddenly Yapi arrived, leaping into action from behind. Activating its system to target a mid-sized entity, Yapi's intervention forced the demon troll onto the defensive, struggling to block the barrage of attacks rather than launching its own counteroffensive. Leon was taken aback by Yapi's unexpected presence inside the gate, wondering why it had come. Yet he felt relief at seeing Spinner successfully block the troll's attack. Riding forward on his stallion, Leon swung his sword through the air with unwavering determination. With a swift, decisive strike, he sliced the demon troll into pieces that hovered momentarily before falling to the ground. Standing amidst the aftermath, Leon remained still, his face splattered with the blood of the slain monster. The remaining demons watched in shock as their formidable troll lay truly dead, a fate unaltered by any chance of reverse summoning. Alarmed by the sudden demise, the remaining creatures began to retreat from the battle. Among the soldiers of the Spiro Kingdom, a mixture of shock and elation washed over them as they realized they had emerged victorious. Tears of relief streamed down their faces, and their expressions glowed with triumph and gratitude as they thanked Leon for saving their kingdom. Their commander also expressed his gratitude to Leon's warriors for their bravery and valor. However, the moment of celebration was short-lived when a notification window appeared bearing alarming news. The Spiro kingdom was now under attack by demons. The revelation stated that they must now protect the kingdom from the invasion of the Demon King, striking fear and urgency into Leon's warriors. Confusion reigned, for they had believed the gate to be a simple yellow passage. One soldier voiced his concerns, expressing worry over the situation, and turned to Leon for answers. In response, Leon inquired about the issue, and the soldier grimly explained that the gate they were supposed to exit through had vanished. Shocked, he explained they were now unable to return. Attempting to reassure his soldiers, he advised them not to act hastily despite their bewilderment. Walking ahead, Leon carefully surveyed their surroundings, trying to make sense of the situation, when Yappy interjected with an explanation. They were facing an unforeseen occurrence, a foreign invasion. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, Leon realized that this must have been the very reason for Yappy's intervention. Turning back to his soldiers, Leon sought further clarification. Daesung raised his hand and offered an explanation, describing the phenomenon as a fluctuating gate where the difficulty level suddenly spikes, trapping them until they manage to overcome it. As Daesung's words sank in, Leon pondered the abnormality, recognizing that it was far from a mere coincidence. After a moment of contemplation, he made a decisive declaration. There would be no deviation from their plan. They would clear the gate. Concerned, Daesung questioned Leon's certainty, pointing out the potential presence of demon kings. In response, Leon's conviction did not waver. He asserted his status as the king of Lionheart, reminding his soldiers of his formidable track record, slaying 2 demon kings and over 30 great demons. He challenged his troops, asking if they doubted his abilities. Aware of Leon's reputation regarding demons, the soldiers had little room for doubt. Meanwhile, Leon reflected on his past, remembering a time when he wielded considerable divine power in his own world. Despite his internal uncertainties about his current ability to guarantee victory against the Demon King, he understood the importance of projecting strength and dependability as a knight, for his soldiers depended on him as their beacon of hope. As darkness enveloped the surroundings of the gate, a sinister laugh echoed through the air. Suddenly, an old man emerged, clutching a purple jewel, and cast his gaze upon Leon from a distance. From the jewel, a voice spoke out, mocking the perceived weakness of Leon. The old man's expression showed a mixture of uncertainty and apprehension as he muttered that, in the end, Leon was just a human. With a hesitant stutter, he inquired whether he should initiate the ritual to begin his descent. In response, the entity within the jewel growled and dismissed the idea as madness, declaring that there was no need for its intervention. Within the ominous confines of the gate, there exists a sinister plot. A creature lay dormant within, a being that had long been the object of demonic sexual desires for a century. Once awakened as the Demon King, this entity would wield the power to slay Lionheart with ease.